First of all, again, I just want to thank everybody for attending our SC Competes first ever Cap Carolina webinar. The background behind this webinar today is as SC Tech, I'm the director of SC Tech. I was meeting with a lot of technology and smaller entrepreneur companies my first 6 months on the job, and was hearing a lot of I'm loving being in South Carolina. I am enjoying the scaling of my company, but sometimes when my head is down, I have a hard time knowing what all opportunities are out in South Carolina when it comes to funding, but not only just funding, but also resources and relationships. So we thought this would be a great way to kind of package everything in one series that will help spotlight a lot of the top resources that are in our state. This is by no means everything, but it is a really great highlight and spotlight of some of the really great things that you as an entrepreneur or somebody in the technology sector might not be aware of. So we're happy to have this opportunity to kind of talk about those things. A little bit about SC Competes. If you're not familiar with us, sorry about that, y'all. South Carolina, I kind of like to read. I don't normally read mission statements kind of verbatim, but I think ours kind of really sums up what we're doing. Is that we are a nonprofit that really tries to uplift some of our top sectors in economic growth. So that's logistics, aerospace, technology, and cybersecurity. And we do that through 3 different primary ways. We support industry clusters, SC Tech. So what we're doing today is a great example of how we're supporting industry clusters by giving them some access to different resources, actionable research. If you're not aware, we lead the economic impact studies for logistics, aerospace, and cybersecurity. A little bit more on that soon. And education and workforce development, we support many different things throughout the state when it comes to education and workforce development, whether it's right now currently supporting some curriculum in AI and tech, to leading really great in-house in-school events like the Lemonade Stand that teaches students in K through 12 different ideas and understanding how logistics works through the concept of a lemonade stand. So lots of different kind of concepts and ideas that we are able to do through education and workforce development to make it fun and tangible to different people. If you're not familiar with everything that SC Competes does, here is a great kind of snapshot of not only our large buckets, which is aerospace, logistics, SC Tech, and cyber, but also the other pieces that we work very strongly in, which is Transform SC, which is everything we're doing in that K through 12 curriculum, Park and Palmetto AI Corridor. This Palmetto AI Corridor is where we're going to sit anything AI that we feel is going to be important for SC, for South Carolina to compete in AI. So more to come on that. It's going to be everything from education to resources to professional development tools. And then lastly, SC Fraunhofer USA Alliance, which is a phenomenal applied research matching program that we do in partnership with the worldwide global community throughout Germany. So we're going to get right into things. We're going to be jumping right into with InvestSC with Will Cruz. I'll let him kind of give his update and everything. And just so you guys are aware, all the speakers, again, will have about 5 to 7 minutes to speak, and then we're going to go rapid into each person, and we'll hold all questions to the end. And we will get to those. So if you have a question and it's top of mind, feel free to throw it into the chat box and we will get to it. Appreciate that. Stay on mute. And with that being said, I'm very excited to introduce Will Cruz.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Probably see a big smile on my face. I got some good news from someone on the chat here, so they know who that is. Anyway, the SSBCI program. Tell you a little bit about it real quick. Next slide, Jamie. First of all, InvestSC was basically formed by South Carolina Job Economic Development Authority, known as JEDA. So we were set up to be the investment group for the state of South Carolina. That's how InvestSC came about. Next slide. So a couple things real quick. SSBCI, lots of acronyms, Small Business Credit Initiative. This is all Treasury funding in a program. This was reauthorized and expanded under President Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, which is why you see that in there. And the program itself has allocated about $10 billion of funding to the states, all states of here domestically, and the District of Columbia and territories and tribal governments. Next slide. So let's talk specifically about South Carolina. SSBCI dollars were allocated and awarded to South Carolina, 101 million. Of that 101 million, we get it in 3 tranches. But that 101 million is being dispersed out in 2 ways. It's going to be on basically the venture capital side, which is the program inside that I run. And then there's going to be the capital access program, which is the loan side, which is handled by someone completely different, by the BDC. And I can get you information if you'd like that. So that's how the money basically is broken out. 51 million will fall under my authority under venture capital and 50 on the loan side. Next slide. So let's talk about the SSBCI venture capital program. There basically is 2 types within the venture capital program. There is a fund investment program, meaning we are an LP. We will invest money to be in a fund, and that fund has to invest in companies here domiciled in the state of South Carolina. And then we have a direct investment program, which is about 31 million. That 31 million will be invested directly by InvestSC. We're looking for investment managers to partner with us, but that 31 million will be directly into those companies ourselves. Next slide. Our mission, basically we want to utilize capital and resource strategically to catalyze the economic impact. We want to use this money to generate an evergreen type of arrangement. We want it to be consequential to the ecosystem and support our partners and support the ecosystem and the founders themselves. Think of us as a catalyst, right? We're going to help the founders get money by them being able to go and tell private capital, listen, for every dollar you invest, InvestSC can match that. From a government standpoint, we invest just like everybody else. We take equity, we invest on the same terms, everything like that. So if everybody was asking that. Next slide. So the InvestSC direct investment strategy, basically partnering with investment managers, which I already went over, and investing from InvestSC itself. We do have a website, www.investsc.com. So if you want to go there and you want to apply for funding directly with InvestSC, again, we do invest directly in the companies. You can provide an application, and there's a frequently asked question, FAQ, that's on our website. I urge every founder, investor, anybody who wants to syndicate or even look at a fund that you want us to invest in, read the FAQ. We have 2 of them, one for the direct side, one for the fund side. They will answer probably 90% of your questions. If not, feel free to email me. Next slide. InvestSC direct investment details. Basically, we're matching capital. We match capital, InvestSC. We do it at the deal level. So minimum of a $1 to $1 match. So if someone puts in 50,000 and we agree, we can match up to 50,000. We invest only in companies based, again, in the state of South Carolina that are domiciled here and registered with the Secretary of State. Next slide. Our fund strategy, we're looking for emerging fund managers, one, but we're also looking for established or new fund managers looking to create a fund. But again, the challenge is your investment thesis, you have to invest these dollars here, companies domiciled in the state of South Carolina. That's been the challenge. We can be an LP, we can invest up to $1, $5, $10 million in a fund. And we do have that budget allocated. Next slide. Fund details. Now, at the fund, if you're a fund manager looking for us to be a LP, that has to be matched at the fund level. So the fund level means if you want us to be an LP and commit 5 million, you have to find somebody else another LP or 2 LPs at 2.5 million to match our 5 million. So it's done at the fund level versus InvestSC. It's done the matching money is done at the deal level. Okay, and again, invest in companies here based in the state of South Carolina. Next slide. Summary. We're trying to work on finalizing details with some investment managers. We've had some challenges with that. But the direct investing on the other side is underway. Companies are in due diligence, and we made our first investment. So we've allocated out of the 31 million in direct investing, we've already allocated 1 million of it. So that's the program. If you have questions, I think Jamie has all my contact information. Please visit our website. It's brand new. It's up and going. It's been there for about 2 months, www.investsc.com. It will allocate and curate your information, your application. We're going to curate all deal flow. So if you want to refer companies to myself, refer them to the website, refer them to the frequently asked questions. All that information is at your fingertips right there. And if it doesn't answer it, please feel free to email me, but we're trying to do this as quickly and as fast as we as possibly can, because we're getting a ton of applications, but it takes time to go through them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Will. Appreciate that. And you like nailed 7 minutes on the head. So everyone's going to have to make sure that they get it, do it as well as Will did. So like Will said, please be sure to check the website and learn more and make sure you apply if you can. We want to make sure these dollars can get out there. That's what the point of this Cap Carolina is so people can find these resources. So be sure to check that out. And just so everyone's aware, we will be following up with this information to you as attendees. And also eventually we will be putting some of this information on SC Compete's website so it can be a little bit more accessible. So everyone can see the different links and things like that. So thank you again, Will. All right, and now I'm very, very excited to introduce South Carolina Apex Accelerator. Mecca will be speaking today. I want to make sure she's all good to go, and then we can get going.
I'm all good. Thank you so much, Jamie. And thank you, team, for having us today. As she said, my name is Mecca Leggett, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager at the South Carolina Apex Accelerator. And I'm excited as well to share some potential opportunities and funding resources for your small business. But first, I'd just like to quickly give you a bit of information about who we are and what we do. Next slide, please. The Apex Accelerator program, formerly known as the Procurement Technical Assistance Program, or PTAP, has been around since 1985. We're administered by the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs, and we play a critical role in efforts to identify and assist a wide range of businesses that are looking to participate in the government marketplace. Next slide, please. So how do we do that? As a client of Apex, our counselors are available to provide one-on-one assistance with several services. We'll help you get registered for CRM systems such as SAM.gov, which is required to work with the federal government. We'll help you with completing your dynamic small business search profile so that contracting officers can easily find your government-ready business. And we'll also help you with any registrations for any state and local procurement systems such as SCIs and SCIBO. If your business is eligible for certifications, such as the Veteran-Owned Small Business or the Women-Owned Small Business certification, we can help you complete the application process. And when it comes to targeting and marketing to government prime contractors, we'll assist you with creating your company's capability statements. It's also referred to as your company's resume. We'll help you with any necessary market research so that you can do your forecasting for your government prime contracting opportunities. We use a bid match service, which is used to send you solicitations that are based on your NAICS and product service codes. And we'll assist you with the reviewing of any of those solicitations. We'll provide guidance on any proposals you'd like to submit, and we will advise during the post-award phase. You'll also have access to on-demand accredited training. You'll receive notifications about industry-relevant events, such as any industry days, B2B events, and matchmaking events. And the best part is we provide these services and more at no cost to you. Next slide, please. A quick snapshot.
Oops, sorry, sometimes it gets ahead of me. There we go.
So this screenshot will show you that our current clients consist of 1,400 businesses plus served across the 46 counties in the state. We've indirectly or directly assisted them in receiving $2 million in state and local agency awards, $67 million in federal agency awards, $110 million in defense awards, and that's totaling around $179 million awarded to our clients as of June. So you're probably thinking that's great, but how can you help me? And next slide, please. So
There it goes.
yeah, so what we have here is a list of many resources, not all, of course, but just some. And these are some opportunities and funding resources that may be available to you in the technology and innovation spaces. So ATI, they connect industry and academia to government entities, and they support R&D collaborations that solve our nation's challenges. Challenge.gov, they empower the federal government and the public to participate together on innovation projects, and they do that through prize competitions. Challenge Her is a national initiative, and they provide women business owners with procurement education, best practices for working with the government, resources, as well as they teach you how to apply to obtain those federal contracts. The Defense Production Act Title III, their office works in partnership with uniformed services, government agencies, and industry, and they identify any critical industry capacities where it may be inefficient that to meet the U.S. defense and commercial needs, The office will partner with the U.S. private industry to mitigate the gaps in domestic supply chain, and they do that through grants, purchase commitments, loans, or loan guarantees. The DoD Manufacturing Institute, this is a new initiative, and they seek to revitalize the U.S.'s domestic manufacturing capability. And they do that through public and private partnerships that they look to enhance America's strategic competitiveness. And they do that through 3 ways, which looks like advancing research and development, growing the manufacturing ecosystem, and then furthering education and workforce development. Next slide. Just a few more. The Federal Lab Consortium, they help innovation and technology projects advance from R&D and prototype phase to achieving commercialization. The Office of Secretary of Defense Manufacturing Education and Workforce Development Program bridges the gap between technology and innovators and the manufacturing workforce by providing training and education. The Office of Secretary of Defense's Manufacturing and Science and Technology program, they focus on cross-cutting defense manufacturing needs. They're looking to stimulate early development in manufacturing processes and enterprise business practices with science and technology developments. The Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Research, also known as SBIR, STTR, which I'm sure you'll hear more about. They're highly competitive programs that encourage domestic small businesses to engage in federal research and development with the potential for commercialization at the 3rd phase. And then lastly, you'll see here listed, we link the White House's critical and emerging technology areas. And this is just a subset of advanced technologies that are potentially significant to the US's national security. Next slide.
Oh. That was it.
Is that it? Okay, well, the last slide, thank you. It had our website listed. It's scaccelerator.org. If you're interested in learning more about the programs, or if you'd like to sign up to become a client, again, it's at no cost to you. You can visit us at our website, and I'm sure Jamie will share that information with you as well. So thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, looks like your one slide got cut off, but I will make sure to add that back in when we share. And again, just reminding everybody that we will be sharing these resources so you'll have access to it. Apex is a phenomenal state and national resource. Definitely recommend reaching out. If you are not familiar with how strong the defense sector is, not only in South Carolina, but throughout, and the opportunities there, you never know where your product can fit into a defense contract or a federal contract or procurement even. So please check it out. Even if you've always kind of said to yourself, I don't think defense is my world, it's something worth looking into. And if you are in Charleston next week, there's actually going to be a Charleston Defense Contractors Association conference that will be talking a lot about the SBIRs as well and the STTRs. So other opportunities to kind of learn more. So thank you so much, Mecca. That was great. Appreciate it. All right. Excited to have not only some of the capital resources, but also resources that might be in your own backyard where you can be around community. and be out around fellow entrepreneurs. All of our regions have these type of resources. So excited to start spotlighting them and to have Caroline speak today. So Caroline, if you're good to go, I know we were having some audio issues earlier, but to speak about
Yep.
GrowCo.
So
Perfect.
should be good to go now on the audio. Sorry about that. Jamie has switched laptops. So I know that the old trusty one works.
There we go.
And also appreciate you adding in like the website and email linkages in this before you send it out. Thank you for doing that. So hey everybody, if you don't know me, I'm Caroline Crowder. I'm the executive director for the Boyd Innovation Center powered by GrowCo. Jamie, we can go ahead and click over to the next slide. Just like Jamie said in the beginning, typically I don't put up like a mission statement when I do presentations like this, but I also think that this is a really concise way and to stick within that 7-minute timeline to talk about what we do in general. A lot of you may have heard of GrowCo as an organization previously. About 2 years ago, a local family foundation called the Boyd Foundation that's based in Columbia infused $1 million of capital into GrowCo, which was an existing nonprofit, to really amp up the services that GrowCo was offering at the time. So over the last 2 years, we've pivoted GrowCo as an organization a little bit and have officially opened now the Boyd Innovation Center that is powered by GrowCo. So I always love to distinguish kind of between the two things of once, or what I should say is once what was two entities, which are now kind of one combined happy marriage and happy family, as I love to say. I also love to call the Boyd Innovation Center this destination where forward-thinking individuals of all backgrounds come together to develop groundbreaking ideas that change the world. If you have heard of Techstars, which is more like a global franchise version of accelerators and also has a venture arm attached to it, they're very big on ideas that change the world. I've spent some time with Techstars previously, as have a couple of my board members as well. So you'll often feel when you're at the BIC, as we call it, that we might be a little Techstarsy, as we say. And if you feel that way, then that's probably true. We're really here to support the high growth, high tech founder community and create that inclusive culture of entrepreneurship for the Columbia metro area and support all of those founders. So Jamie, if you'll hit the next slide, I'll talk about some of the founders that we work with. Kind of following along with some of those, that Techstars ethos in general. We have a community pledge. We're really big on community at the BIC. We're really structured, well, not really structured in a lot of ways, but we're very structured with a very specific mindset of what we're looking for in our founders. We adopted the Techstars ethos of give first. If you're not familiar with it, it essentially means that you give to your neighbors without expecting anything in return. It's literally just living founder first and give first. Is kind of our ethos with that. So happy to dive deeper into that offline if you want to dive deeper into that of why it's important for startup communities to have that ethos as their foundation and as their structure. But what I'm going to really focus on is more of who we work with and what we actually really do. So most of our founders, or actually all of our founders, do reside in the Columbia metro region. You will also never hear me say Midlands region, which is a bad habit that I'm also trying to break, but we're also trying to elevate Columbia as a metro region and put Columbia as a dot on the map. This spans well beyond Columbia and well beyond South Carolina, with making Columbia that inclusive culture of entrepreneurship and inspiring new founders for this region. It involves us like also saying things like Columbia metro region rather than Midlands region, for example. So we work with all of the entire entrepreneurial stack, as I call it, from idea all the way to growth and exit stage. So some of our founders that we work with, you may just have an idea and have no clue of what to do with it. That's perfectly fine. We have a couple of on-ramps for those that I'll dive into deeper on the next slide. On the other side of that spectrum, you'll also, maybe you've heard of companies that are based in Columbia, like Van Robotics with Laura Boconfuso, or Integer Technologies, Duke Hartman. Those are the sorts of companies that we're going to support and that we're best enabled to support and build community around. So if you fall into anywhere in that spectrum, as I say, like if you've got an idea all the way to growth stage, you're probably going to find some resources that you can take advantage of. So Jamie, if you hit the next slide, I'll talk through just a couple, like the high level stuff of what we do. I hope I don't bore you guys too much with this, but some of those on-ramps that I'm talking about, if you just have an idea, you're probably looking at something under this programs category here. We have a pre-accelerator program we call COLA Starts. We're launching something new, actually in 2 months with all of our local universities, all 7 of them. And we will be diving into really like a condensed startup weekend. If you've heard of those, we'll be building startups with primarily university students in 1 day with an evening kickoff. And idea launch, really similar structure, but takes a even more condensed version of what Startup 1.5 will be and condenses that down into just half a day event. We do our weekly coffee meetups that are called Tech Beans every single Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Sometimes we have some folks that linger and love to call me. So Jamie, that's my excuse for missing our audio check this morning. Sorry. We also have third Thursdays now for the 5 Points neighborhood that we do. There are monthly happy hours. I think 2 of the easiest ways to bring people together is A, over coffee, and B, over adult beverages. So you will always see us offering probably some food, some coffee, a happy hour beverage, or sparkling water, whatever your choice might be. Would totally encourage you to come down to our third Thursday events. We usually have well over 100 people who float in through that. Grab a beer, have a conversation with a new founder or with a creative person. We also have local artists that are out on display for that one. So it really brings like our tech and creative communities together in Columbia. It's a very, very unique event. And then we just have a few little other things that we do. We got a mentor program, job board, open office hours with founders, that sort of thing. But most importantly, we're really just a place and a destination where you can come, you can meet other like-minded people, build that community and build that tribe of what you're looking for. Because the entrepreneurial journey is quite lonely, and we definitely want to overcome that, right? And make that journey a bit more enjoyable for you, connect you with great mentors, great talent, great capital, great resources like all the other speakers on this call today, and in the entire CAP series that otherwise you might not know. So Jamie, you can hit my last slide, which has got my email and our website on it. Our website's also going through a big revamp right now, so go lightly on it because it was developed by me, who's not a professional website. So thank you guys for your time, and I'll drop my info in the chat as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. If you have not stopped into the Boyd Innovation Center and you're in the Columbia region, be sure to stop in, especially for one of those coffees. If you're not in the Columbia region and you're looking for something similar to Boyd Innovation Center around you, most of our regions have something very similar to this. So if you're not able to find that, please feel free to reach out to me. And I will help you kind of connect with the people in your area, because a big part of growing isn't just with the capital piece or the fundraising, but it also is the networking and the relationships and the knowledge. And we are really growing that ecosystem here in South Carolina. So thank you so much. All right, and now let's move to our next, kind of going back to the CAP in Cap Carolina, is the capital piece. So really excited to have Cliff speak, and I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for having me here. I am the co-founder and managing director of Cultivation Capital. We are an early stage venture capital firm. I am located in Greenville, South Carolina. Jamie, next slide. A little bit about the overview of our firm. We were founded in 2012. We are getting close to $500 million of assets under management. That's spread across 14 different funds that are in really 5 different segments. So the first is software tech, which is primarily B2B SaaS, but also some fintech type companies. Our life sciences company, our life sciences fund is in the process of launching its 4th fund, and it's going to have a very specific focus on cardiac solutions. So if you're an entrepreneur working on something that has to do with healthcare of the heart, the life sciences fund will be looking for those types of opportunities exclusively. So that's the only kind of life sciences opportunities they'll be pursuing over the next couple of years. We also have an ag tech fund. Our fourth ag tech fund just launched this week, actually, hot off the press. They are more of a generalist in the ag tech space. However, they do not invest in actual production. So they don't do greenhouses, they don't do farming, they don't do actual farming services, but any type of technology that aids into the farming community, or really the entire field to table supply chain, anywhere where technology can help create new solutions, they are interested. That does include in the sciences, and they have made investments in seed technologies and things related to DNA and RNA with regard to plant science. We also have a seed fund, which is also getting ready to launch. That's an SBA fund, and that is focused on seed stage companies, primarily in B2B SaaS and fintech, but we'll also consider ag tech opportunities. The seed fund, being an SBA, has a particular interest in companies that are located in LMI zones. So these are low and moderate income areas, and is a particular interest also in making sure that we have a diverse group of founders. So that is literally going to be launching any week now. We're just waiting for the final okay from the SBA. And the last area of focus we have is in geospatial technologies. So we have an A round fund focused to anything that has to do with location as a service. And you see geospatial type companies in defense, in supply chain and logistics, and in precision agriculture as well. So anything where location is a primary part of the technology service that you're providing. Few things that link all of our funds together is a passion to serve undercapitalized markets. So areas like South Carolina, like in the Southeast and the Midwest, and we're less interested in investing in Silicon Valley, New York City, kind of the big Boston, the big traditionally well-funded metros. We were founded under the premise to serve the rest of the country and serve these underserved and undercapitalized markets around the rest of the US. We also purposely maintain smaller fund sizes, relatively smaller compared to these mega funds, these billion-dollar funds that you see in California and the Northeast. So we tend to have funds that are less than $100 million, which might sound like a lot, but in our industry, that's actually pretty small. And we also are very keen and focused on creating alignment between our entrepreneurs, ourselves, and our LPs. Next slide. This is just a little bit about our team. So we do have a large team backing us in all of our industry verticals. We have industry experts. These are almost entirely former entrepreneurs who have started companies in these industries, sold their companies, and now are bringing some of that knowledge, some of that treasure to help the next generation of entrepreneurs coming up, next in line behind them. We also are fortunate to have a great staff. We have 2 full-time general counsels, which means that it's very easy for us to provide a lead. And for those of you that are out raising early stage capital, you know that the concept of finding a lead investor can be a challenge, but we love leading, and we do that frequently. Next slide. We'll go on to the next slide after this one. These are just a few examples of companies that we've backed in the past. Covercrest was a cover crop, and we were at a wonderful exit for $200 million. This was a company that does a winter cover crop, and they use the seed oil for jet fuel. DealCloud is based in Charlotte, and that was a company that manages, it's a fintech company that manages deal rooms for investment firms. And Gainsight is a company that really pioneered the idea of customer success, in fact, coined the term. And we were the seed investor for Gainsight. Very exciting, had $1 billion exit with that company. Next slide. What are we looking for in new investments? We typically, across all of our verticals, revenue in the $500,000 to $3 million range. Growth is usually the hardest hurdle. We're looking for companies that are at least growing 2x year over year, at least a little more than that if it's a very early stage company. We're looking for great unit economics. We want to see that you have an economic model that works and is scalable. We're also looking to see that you have a marketing and sales model that works and is scalable. We obviously are looking for companies that have a robust exit potential, and we're looking for great founding teams. Next slide. So this is my contact information. If anybody has a company that fits into any of those descriptions, into those verticals, in those stages, we're very interested. And even if you're a little early, still happy to talk to you and give you any advice and let you know kind of how we might be looking at what milestones you would need to be to get to that next level.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cliff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't, like you said, don't forget to reach out and learn more. Also regarding learn more, I don't see any questions yet in the chat, and I know you have questions. So please be sure to take this time to kind of ask that burning question about opportunity. And we can kind of get those in front of the people that you might not always have time to get a face-to-face to. So we'd love for you to put those in there now, and we will get them to at the end. We have 2 speakers left, so you can give you a little bit of time to start thinking about that. All right, now we're going to go to our next speaker. I'm really excited to have SCRA speak at all 3 of our upcoming Cap Carolina webinars. Many of you I know are very familiar with SCRA. And because they provide such a wide breadth of opportunities and resources, we wanted to give them 3 chances to be able to kind of talk about different things that they do. And so they can really kind of call out those things. So with that being said, I'm happy to introduce Lee with SCRA.
Great. Thank you very much, Jamie. I appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity here, as well as the subsequent opportunities. And I'll put a plug in for Cliff. Just a great firm, great individual for our state. So those of you that have opportunities, as we've had some portfolio companies go with Cliff, so please definitely consider him. About SCRA, we are and by the way, again, Lee Macilwinen, director of SC Launch, it's an entrepreneurial program within the South Carolina Research Authority. For those of you not familiar with SCRA, the acronym, we're a 40-year-old nonprofit company. Next slide. I keep forgetting that I'm not driving. Thanks, Jamie. So 40-year-olds, we've been doing this, and our focus has been on 4 sectors. Previously, it was 3. We were created by the state legislature for these 4. And those, what you'll see is advanced materials manufacturing, IT, life sciences, and the newest one is clean tech, sustainability, and resilience. Next slide, please. And our focus is really, this is our tagline, fueling the state's innovation economy. We do that through academia, entrepreneurship, and industry, and facilities. And I'm going to talk briefly about each one of those programs. Next slide, please. In academic innovations, our focus is around twofold. It's really coaching and networking support that we provide. We have a number of startups that are working through our academic institutions. We're in the technology transfer office is critical. We work with both Clemson, USC, and MUSC as our R1s, and have great relationships with the other primary undergraduate institutions as well. And then we also have funding opportunities as well. Next slide, please. You heard mention about SBIR and STTRs previously. So one of our funds that you'll see on the left-hand side is called the Federal Matching Grant. So we do provide some funding that matches that SBIR, say phase 1 or phase 2 award that you might receive. In addition, if you're an academic startup, a faculty member that's trying to launch a startup, we have funding that's available through that as well. And on the research side, we have 2 specific grants, academic matching, and then a collaborative one that we do, which is a multi-year, usually over $1 million grant that's made with multiple institutions in our state. Next slide, please. On facility side, we manage and own and operate 6 different facilities, which is over 1.4 million square feet. Next slide, please. Some of our companies that we have as part of our entrepreneurial program are our tenants in those, but we have 3 in the upstate. We have 2 in the Columbia area as well, which includes our research park just off of I-77, and then we have 1 in the 1 in the upstate and 3 in the low country as well. Next slide, please. Industry solutions is a focus area for us where we essentially work with the industry companies that are both in our state as well as being brought into the state. So we work closely with the Department of Commerce to do recruiting. And the goal is to match the industry needs with technology that might be available through startups or academic institutions. Next slide, please. We do have funding opportunities around those as well. Those are around, we call demonstration grants, where we're putting together an industry partner together with either an academic institution or a startup that provides a type of technology innovation that that industry partner is looking for. In addition, I mentioned that we work directly with Department of Commerce as well as the regional economic development alliances to try to relocate strategic technology companies into our state. And we have grants that can help supplement that with the incentive that's offered by our state as well. Next slide. And then last, but certainly not least, is SC Launch. This is the organization that I'm a part of. So we have an SC Launch program. We'll talk about the fund in just a second. And this essentially is the support vehicle that we use for our entrepreneurs that we focus on. We have about 140 of those companies. Total is 200 companies that we work with, 60 of roughly in it broken out in industry as well as academia, and the remaining 140 are in this SC Launch program. And our focus is really assigning a dedicated resource to help you coach and mentor your company and to bring in and using their respective networks. As well as we have member benefits, 14 different allied partners that have signed up to actually provide us preferred pricing, everything from legal to marketing, human resource, healthcare, and the like. We also have non-dilutive funding opportunities. We have 2 of those in different phases of your life cycle of development. And then last, certainly not least, is our fund. Next slide, please. So I mentioned briefly about the non-dilutive side. That's the SC Launch program that you see on the left of your slide. We have 2 different grants in different phases of the life cycle. One is the earlier stage, kind of in the development side. That's the Project Development Fund at PDF. And an acceleration grant is to get you to where you're investment ready by either a Cultivation Capital or SC Launch Inc., which is our investment affiliate fund that actually Cliff is on the board of. And those are our average check size there is $200,000 to $300,000. Over the last, since 06, when it was funded, we've invested $46 million into those in about 120 different companies. About 60 of those are active portfolio members of ours. Next slide. And I think that's it for me. The last thing I'll end with is I wanted to be able to be very general in SCRA because there are a lot of different programs that we offer. The last slide you saw about SC Launch and SC Launch Inc. we'll cover in far more detail with my colleagues Matt Bell and Derek Willis on the next opportunity for these sessions. But it's been a pleasure and thank you for your time.
I'll just add to Lee, I've worked with SCRA and SC Launch for 3 years now, and we really admire their work. And I've worked with economic development groups in multiple states, and they are total pros. And when we see a company that has gone through their programs, we have more confidence as venture capitalists in investing in those companies because we know the quality of the advice they've been receiving. And when we see a due diligence memo from SC Launch, we know it was done well, and that was a thorough report. And so getting involved with them is really a great way to get credibility, in the venture capital world. So it's not just a great resource for money, but also a great resource for your reputation and for your general savvy.
Thanks, Cliff. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I will have to say, our speaker from JEDA actually had a family emergency. He was going to try to get on at the very end, but unfortunately is still dealing with that. And so with that being said, he did promise that he is going to attend either the second or third and speak. So I guess this just gives us a way to tell everyone to stay tuned and sign up for the other 2. So you can learn more about JEDA, which is a really important piece to our ecosystem when it comes to the loan opportunities. Will, I don't know if there's anything that you want to say or anything with your partnership with JEDA. If not, we can kind of save that to the next opportunity. As you can see, he did provide many a great slide to speak about. But I will head to the end here.
Yeah, JEDA's more on the job economic with the bond sales that Jesse handles, but JEDA, just so everybody knows, that's the sponsor of InvestSC. So they are the implementing entity with the federal government, with Treasury, to help us secure those $101 million SSBCI funds that we secured. So they are the sponsor of us. So they do have oversight with us. They just can't invest in companies. They're not allowed to legally. So that's why they created InvestSC, which is why we're doing what we're doing. But I don't want to speak for Jesse as far as what they do, specifically in bond sales and things. I think he can get into that a lot better than I can. But that's the affiliation and how we work together, JEDA and InvestSC, because we're pretty much in tandem with one another.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Like I said, if you use the QR code that's provided here, you'll see the other links. And once we confirm which one Jesse can do, we will plug that in so you can see and get a full presentation from him. Will, you did get a question just now from Andrew. He was asking, do you expect funding, that $101 million funding each year?
No.
Okay.
No, this is just a one-time shot. It depends on the next election, whether it will be renewed again. This is version 2.0 of the SSBCI funds, the program. So no, it is not evergreen that it comes every single year. This is just awarded based on this. If they decide to do a version 3.0, it's going to be predicated on the next election and the next administration voted in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
That was the only question I saw. Please, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to plug something in if you want to. I get so many questions from so many entrepreneurs that I know you probably have one that's kind of sitting in there. While I wait to see if anybody else wants to plug anything in, I will ask either maybe Lee or Cliff. One question I get from fairly new entrepreneurs is kind of what's the number one mistake you see people do in their first round pitch? What's something that a new entrepreneur can kind of avoid day one and kind of looking bad in that first step pitch? And Will, if you have any thoughts there too, any feedback someone could take as like a stay away from this in your first steps.
I know Cliff has more experience as much as anybody, and I support what Lee's comments are. For those of you who don't know Cliff, great resource, great friend, great advocator, and great for our state. So I'm glad to be associated with Cliff, and I'm going to be hopefully doing more deals with Cliff and Lee with InvestSC and matching capital. But the only thing I would tell founders, sell the problem, don't sell the solution. We know you have a solution. Sell me the problem. Tell me the problem. Because that tells me you know what you're talking about. It tells me you have domain experience. It tells me you know the market size. And it tells me you can develop traction and you know your customers, you know your customer profile. That in itself is essentially what I look for, is tell me about the problem, how big it is, the implications of the problem. The more you can tell me about the problem, the more I'm interested, because that tells me you did your homework.
Great tip. Will, I'm sorry, Cliff, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I'd say before you pitch, understand who you're pitching and what business they're in and what they're looking for. Because maybe it's not a pitch. Maybe that case you're asking for advice. So if you're a pre-revenue company and you're coming to me, I don't invest in pre-revenue companies. I wouldn't know how to. So if you come at me with the perspective of a pitch, you're not going to get my best way to help you, which at that stage would be advice, or at least just a relationship building, right? Whereas if you were going to GrowCo, right, they're extremely interested in working with people at that stage. So first and foremost, understand who you're talking to and make sure you're making the right pitch for the ways that they're able to help you.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jamie, if I could think up on what Cliff and iterate on something that he just said, what we love to say when we're coaching up founders, like through our Cola Starts Pre-Accelerator program, for example, is we love to say, if you want investment, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for investment. So it's really, it comes down to a lot of like relationship building. You've heard like Will and Cliff and Leo complement each other. Like if you're a founder on the call, like just take note of that, right? Like we all talk to each other. We're all very in sync with each other.
Wonderful. Thank you. We got a question from Alan for early pre-stage, pre-MVP and revenue advice for resources in South Carolina. I have received investment from Launch VC in Silicon Valley, anything like that in South Carolina. So I don't know if Lee might know some about general resources or anyone that who can answer that question well.
I'll be glad to give it. I'll take a crack at it. So really the organization that we built, I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley, and there are, to your point, there are a ton of resources there. A lot of it is because that's where a lot of the software gets built. And so you have an effect of people knowing it's a vibrant event there, freedom to fail, all that. And that what they built is what we're trying to construct in a micro version here in South Carolina. And that's a lot of what we do within our program. But we do provide the resources, whether it's mentoring, coaching. We utilize great people like Caroline and what she's building there at and has already built at BIC, as well as people like Cliff who are in the area of being able to provide counsel. But to Cliff's point, really do thinking about the original question, know who your audience is, so that there's an ask there. But I'm happy to go into more detail about what we provide that is Silicon Valley like. In terms of what you're looking for.
Wonderful. Great. Any other questions? I think I just got one just through. All right. Thank you, DeMario. His question is, are there any current interests from investors or other organizations who are seeking AI ed tech companies who provide accredited online training, such as AI, quantum computing, electric vehicles, to workforce development professionals? Ooh, that's a good one.
If they're over 500K and growing over 2x year over year, send me a message.
There you go.
Yeah, same here.
And I'm sure if you're earlier stage than that, all of the resources here would be interested to hear about what you're doing. I will tell you, in general, you're going to find that people are more, or investors, not people, investors are more interested in companies that are providing products versus services. So you do need to be thoughtful about what it is you're providing, because companies that are just doing services like providing courses don't have the same valuations as companies that are providing the infrastructure or the technology that is used by people who provide courses. And I know those sound kind of similar, but there's this concept in our industry of being, are you a product or are you a service? And we ask that a lot because product companies have higher valuations in the marketplace, much higher, and services companies are valued much lower when it comes to ultimate acquisition. And so in our business model, we usually can't make money on services companies because the company isn't going to be worth enough on exit for us to get a return on our investment and then make a margin for our investors, for the people who invest in our funds. So one thing that we are very conscientious of is a given company providing, a scalable, repeatable product, or are they providing, a manual service? So when you get into education, it can go both ways. Kind of like when I mentioned in ag that we don't invest in producers, we don't invest in farms, but we do invest in companies that sell products to farms. It's the same idea. It's services versus product. So it's fine to be in the service industry. And I know lots of people who've made a lot of money in the service industry. They just didn't usually get their funding from venture capital.
Wow, that is a great answer, Cliff, and something that I think people might not always think of, that product versus service concept. It seems so simple, but is there a way to look up or kind of confirm what you are in the eyes of the capital investor before putting together your, is there a kind of an easy definition of one versus the other that can be found online or somewhere?
I'll jump in. One thing you can think about is if there is a body attached to the delivery of that service, then you are a services company, meaning if you develop it, and you are developing and servicing a product, but somebody is essentially as responsible for delivering that service, you would think of yourselves as a service company. And that, to Cliff's point, is it's difficult to scale because you have to do it by adding more people. The beauty of a product company is you have all of that done ahead of time. You have a huge investment on the front end to develop the code, and it scales very, very easily without a lot of people having to deliver it. So it's scalable. This company. But Jamie, to just summarize, I think it really comes down to if somebody's involved in delivering the service, a physical person versus not a human, it's delivered by B2B SaaS over the cloud. That's probably the key factor.
Let's get started right now with Matt Bell with the SCRA.
Hi, everyone. I am Matt Bell. I'm the Executive Director of SC Launch Inc. And just as a tip, if you see, I'm sure many of you have heard of the SC Launch program within SCRA. And SCRA is our parent organization. If you see the Inc. on the end of SC Launch Inc., that refers to the SC Launch Fund, which is the investment affiliate of SCRA. And Jamie, if you could go to the next slide. SCRA is an organization that really supports on focuses upon technology enablement within the state of South Carolina by working with academic, entrepreneurship, and industry partners. The launch program is the one that works specifically with entrepreneurship. And last week, Lee Macilwinen talked about the SC Launch program elements and the support activities and the grants, and hopefully the member benefits program that we just rolled out recently that focuses upon not only the creation of a PEO insurance program for most of our companies that are in the space, in the entrepreneurship space, but also a number of support and discount activities. But we're really trying to find ways to support the entrepreneurship, the tech entrepreneurship within the state. The Inc., as I mentioned before, is the fund. There is a 501(c) that is part of that SC Launch program. That's what I am the executive director on. And that is the organization that invests into these companies and actually takes equity and it acts as a seed investor within the state. SC Launch Inc. has been investing in the state since 2006. We've invested over $40 million during that time frame. We've probably got 50 plus active companies in our portfolio at this time, and we actively invest in 12 new companies a year. So it's a very active program. And we've had some exits on it, even though we're a 501(c) nonprofit. We do invest for some ROI. In the last 2-3 years, I would say, we had Proterra. We were an early stage investor in Proterra that went public 2 to 3 years ago, and we got some returns on that. And we're an active investor in Green River Spirits, which had a $280 million exit down in Charleston that we got some returns on that. What's kind of cool is the returns from those activities, we just pour into the next company. So our objective is to invest and get the next company up and to scale those companies and to get some things going. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. And next slide, please. Go into a little bit more detail. So as Lee had probably mentioned to you last week, he focused upon grant funding, coaching, and network and marketing support. My small group basically works on the investment. We are typically seen as the end of that program. So a lot of companies come to us very early stage, work through a lot of the evolution of their company using some of our support services, and then we invest. However, we do encourage companies that are later stage that don't need those services, but are still looking for some seed funding to come to us and talk to us about seed funding opportunities, because we do act like a seed fund and we do invest in companies that are new to the program. Next slide, please. Our objective is to get you through the valley of death. And we do this by really focusing upon trying to get companies follow-on funding to our investment. Typically, we invest $200,000 to $300,000 in most of our investments, and we can do that multiple times. But for a lot of these companies, they're going to need millions of dollars. So we focus on capitalization planning and working on getting follow-on funding into these companies. Our objectives are also returns on investment. As I mentioned, we've had some returns, and to keep the fund fluid for future generations, we do focus on trying to get some returns on some of the investments we do, even though we're very early stage. And then finally, in-state jobs. We are an economic development fund, a nonprofit, so we do focus on trying to promote jobs within the state. Next slide, please. Areas we look for, again, it has to be a tech-based company. We do look in life sciences, advanced manufacturing, alternative energy, and information technology are some of our key areas. And we're looking for companies that can scale. Again, that follow-on funding and getting companies that can attract additional capital and scale and create jobs is really our mission. Revenue growth is something we actively look at, and impact upon the state of South Carolina. We are very much a South Carolina-based fund. We only invest in companies based in South Carolina. And so we're looking for companies that have an impact within the ecosystem here. Next slide. Again, $200,000 to $300,000 investment. We do 10 to 12 investments annually. We do invest quarterly. The SC Launch Inc. board meets quarterly. I actually got a meeting coming up on August 13th. And we do run the companies through a diligence process. Right now, we've got probably about 8 companies that we're doing diligence on for the board meeting, and we'll only have about 3 or 4 that'll actually pitch. So we do due diligence. We do act like a seed fund. And we do try to prep you a little bit for the next stage where you're doing your first Series A. We also work with a lot of the other investors in the state, and a lot of the rounds we do, even though we invest $200,000 to $300,000, can get as high as $1 million to $1.5 million. And we work with other investors within the state. Next slide. Again, if you would like to know more about this, or would like to contact anyone or learn about whether you qualify for this program, please feel free to reach out to myself. You can also go to the SCRA website, and there is an SC Launch portion of that. Some of that goes into the program, some of it goes into the fund itself, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got, or to talk with you about maybe some of your capitalization needs and capitalization planning activities. With that, I'll end. Jamie.
Unmute. All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate that. Sorry, I think one of your slides might have gotten knocked out, so that's my apologies. Thank you so much to everybody at SCRA. As Matt referenced, SCRA provides so many resources in the world of funding that we have asked them to speak at all 3. So everyone can get an idea of the different resources they provide. Because sometimes people package SCRA in just one idea when they offer many. So I definitely recommend that when we push everything out, that you do tune in to all 3 webinars so you can hear everything they're doing. So thank you, Matt. We appreciate the time. And now I'm excited to pass it over to Nancy Conwell with South Carolina Department of Commerce. I have the pleasure of getting to work with Nancy on the regular. So excited to have you all hear about the great work they are doing at the business service team.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. It's great to see everybody. And thank you so much for participating. I'm Nancy Conwell, and I'm the Manager for Innovation for Department of Commerce here in South Carolina. Casey Sims is also listening in. She's the Innovation Coordinator, and we both work very closely together to promote our programs across the state. I just want to let everyone know I do have to hop off at 2 p.m., but Casey will be online to answer any questions that might pop up. But also any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or shoot them over to Jamie or put them in the chat, and we'll be sure to get back to you. All right, thanks. Next slide, Jamie. So as many of you know, Department of Commerce, we have 2 divisions. We have Global Business Development, and then we have Business Services. And so the Small Business and Innovation team is located on Business Services side of the house, as we call it. And I'll be going over the Innovation team and what differentiates us from the Small Business team. Next slide. So through Business Services, you can see on this slide, we have various teams that support companies throughout their business journey. And of course, innovation crosses all industries and it crosses all stages. And so there's sometimes there are people that confuse our team with, say, the mission of what SCRA does. And so this opportunity to clarify what we do and how we support organizations like SCRA or SC Competes is really critical. But we are here to help and navigate you to the different resources available in the state. Next slide. So the Small Business and Innovation team, we are very focused on the organic growth of businesses. Now, the small business team is made up of two individuals, Sonia Barkley and Andrina King, and they work a great deal with the traditional Main Street businesses. They're not to be confused with the small business development centers. They are out meeting with with entrepreneurs, small business owners, or people thinking about starting a small business. And Sonia and Andrina, their role is to help navigate them and point them to the resources that are available across the state. The innovation team is myself and Casey Sims, and with just two people and a huge state and lots of activity across industries, the most effective way for us to help support the ecosystem is through programming. Next slide. So this is a slide that really explains and connects what the small business team does. And they do have a new grant program called Stimulate SC. It is somewhat similar to the Relentless Challenge Grant as far as its structure. However, its primary focus is on nonprofit, small and Main Street organizations that support businesses, looking through programming to learn about what it takes to start a business and what resources are available. So again, Stimulate SC is very different from the Relentless Challenge program. And this is their second year. They did a pilot last year on the program, and they're launching it this year again. And I believe they've released the notice of funding. But I did want to stress that it's a very different as far as the focus. Next slide. So the innovation team, just like I said before, it's a big, very broad focus to do this statewide. And so we do rely on our entrepreneur support organizations like Grady's Harbor Entrepreneur Center, Emerge in Myrtle Beach, GrowCo in Columbia, in Greenville, Next Gen, the platform at Greer. We work very closely with the entrepreneur support organizations. We also work very closely with individuals like Herbert Drayton. We work very closely with SCRA, and we want to hear from them what they're experiencing and hearing and seeing in the ecosystem that's impacting the founders, these high impact entrepreneurs. And so with this information, we can go back to Julie Kunkel, who's the Deputy Director of Business Services, and Chantal Fryer, the Director of Business Services, and we can help formulate some programs that will help educate, inform, and elevate some of the activities across the state. Next slide. So also to clarify, when we do talk about innovation, we are speaking about or focusing on those organizations that support founders, people in ideation stage that are pre-revenue. They're primarily focusing on research and development. They do have potential to develop whatever product or service into something that's available to the commercial market, and something that is going to be very innovative and change the way business is done, or the way a product is made, or it's an entirely new product that answers a real world problem. These companies need, or founders need coaching, they need access to capital. And so when we work with the ESOs and others, we design programs specifically geared to this phase. And I think, the vision or the idea, the hope is that these companies will emerge from entrepreneur support organizations and either transition over to some of the programming that SCRA, SC Launch offers, or they're doing it concurrently. Next slide. Oops.
Oh.
Got a summary there. Okay. So we do have a toolbox that we're very excited about. It's very effective. We have 3-phase. We will work with qualified companies to put them in touch with 3-phase, and they will provide grant support. It's 100% free consulting grant support for SBIR, STTR. Our second program that we adore is our Relentless Challenge Grant, and this is, again, programming that impacts the ecosystem. It's geared towards providing an entrepreneurial mindset, access to venture capital, and the third goal is programs that will help bring together industry and higher ed in research collaboration. We don't fund research projects, but we will fund programs that will help inform and connect industry and universities. We have the Palmetto Venture Fellowship, which is a grassroots effort of informing individuals across the state of the risk and reward of being a venture capitalist. And then we do work with SC Fraunhofer, USA Alliance. We do a lot of referrals, but that's for the next set of the next part of the webinar. Next slide. I just went over the goals, and we can go on to the next slide. And here's the innovation team. This is Casey Sims and myself. And please, if you ever see us out and about, usually we're mingling with Jamie or with Matthew or someone from SCRA, but please come up and say hello and introduce yourself to us and let us know what you're seeing and hearing. And if you have any questions about the programs that we support, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And another call out too is 3-phase and Fraunhofer will be speaking at our next webinar. So you can tune in to even learn more about those great resources. Like I said earlier, SE Competes and Commerce work very closely together on several different projects, those two included. All right, so moving on, I'm very excited to introduce Paul, and he's going to be telling us all of the different amazing resources that the SBDC provides statewide. So I will let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you all, and thank you all for being here. My name is Paul Featheringill. I'm with the SBDC, the South Carolina Small Business Development Center. And next slide. We just to give you a little bit of an idea of who we are a nationwide network of 62 programs in about 1,000 centers. And we've been around since 1979. And in fact, South Carolina was one of the pilot programs, one of the first programs in the country that was established by the SBDC. We have 21 centers across the state. And what we primarily do is we offer individual confidential business consulting at no cost to the client. We have over 50 highly trained consultants around the state. We assist both existing and startup companies and all different types of businesses. The only thing we require is that you be a for-profit business. We don't assist nonprofits. And we operate under SBA and national accreditation standards that are set and established by Congress. So we do every 5 years. In fact, we just finished it last year. We go through an accreditation process, and that is to make sure that we are operating under a set of national standards to provide you with the best possible guidance and advice and direction that we possibly can. Next slide. So what do we do more specifically? As I mentioned, the individual private consulting sessions at no cost to the client. In addition to that, that's our bread and butter. We also offer educational workshops and seminars. So at the end of this presentation, I'll have a slide that's got our website on it and our contact information. And one of the things that you can do is you can go on there and you can see some of the different programs that we have, the educational workshops that we have. In fact, we have one going on right now on small business financing. So you can go on there and see what we have coming up up. And you can also see the things that we've done in the past that are recorded that are available there for you to view at your leisure. The majority of the sessions that we offer are at no cost. The majority of them are virtual. We do them over Zoom. We do on occasion have an in-person one, but the majority of them now are virtual, and they're recorded on our website. We also do referrals and joint services with service partners. And this is where I'm going to give a shout out. And I'm going to say that we've worked with pretty much everybody else on this call as far as a resource at different times. They are all fantastic. In fact, Matt Bell from SC Launch is on our advisory board for the local SBDC, and we refer clients over there all the time. They do with us. Commerce is a tremendous partner with us, and we're very excited to work with the folks in business services at Commerce. Herbert Drayton from Highmark Capital that you'll hear from in a little bit. I've got some clients that I'm working with right now that he's working with as well. I've referred people to Grady before, and of course, Peter Shand at BDC. We'll talk a little bit about some of the financing stuff that we do. So pretty much everybody on this call, we bring into the ecosystem to help us help you better through the services that we offer. So I just want to say that we don't look at this as an individualized approach, but we really utilize all of the other resources in the ecosystem to help you. And I want to say that that's one of the really cool things that I say to people all the time is how great of an ecosystem we have in the state of South Carolina to really help entrepreneurs at any stage of business and any type of businesses that you're doing to really get started and to really grow and to really succeed. So I'll stop the sermon for the moment, but I just wanted to give a shout out to that. Next slide. So who do we work with? For-profit enterprises, as I mentioned, we have very limited services that we can offer for nonprofits, but typically with nonprofits, we would refer you to one of our other resources, the Veterans Business Outreach Center, Women's Business Centers around the state, SCORE, other groups that are available in the ecosystem that can help you. We do established businesses or startup, really whatever stage of business you're at, we can help you. I would say that the majority of the clients that we serve are businesses that, they're established, they've been in business for a few years, and they're kind of at that point where they have an opportunity for growth, they have an opportunity for expansion, or maybe they're having a particular challenge with financing or with planning or with something else where we can help with that. But we'll work with you no matter the stage of business that you're at, and all industry segments throughout South Carolina, any kind of industry that you're in. We use the SBA's definition of small businesses for the clients that we service. So essentially, if you're, I believe it's 500 employees, and I believe it's either $5 or $10 million in revenue, we can assist you. Next slide. So we do business planning, business structure and organization, referral to startup and other resources. So some of them I've mentioned, but also attorneys, accountants, those kinds of resources, we can refer you there. We can help you with financial management. We have a great referral network of lenders and other financing partners that we can refer you to. We can help you with loan applications. Next slide. Operations and HR, we have marketing experts on staff. We can help you with review and sort of pointers on website development. We don't actually do websites. We can refer you to people that do, but we can certainly give you pointers on it. Social media design and use, business strategic planning, and sales and growth strategies. Next slide. Now, this is where we can really speak to you, some of the specialty services we offer. We have a procurement government contracting specialist. We actually have 3 of them around the state. And so we can help you get registered to pursue government contracting and go through that process. We can also help you with different kinds of certifications, minority-owned business, women-owned business, veteran-owned business, et cetera. We have a specialist for assisting with international trade and with manufacturing, and then product and technology commercialization. So if you developed a new product or you're in the process and you need help with any kind of IP, patent kind of services, we have people who can help with the SBIR, SDTR. We work with SC Launch and other programs a lot on getting people through that. We actually have, the position is empty right now, but we're in the process of hiring a specialist in product and technology commercialization. So we should have someone else in that shortly, so we can help you there. And then referrals to specialized services like IP, patent, that sort of thing. Next. So I think I'm almost out of time. So if you need help, this is our website. Feel free to visit here, sign up to request counseling. I'll also put my information, my contact information directly into the chat box so that you guys can reach out to me directly if you would like. But we would be happy to help you. We're a statewide organization. As I said, I'm based here in Charleston, in North Charleston, but wherever you are or whatever your need is, we can find someone to help you. So thank you for your time, and I'll be here to answer questions at the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate the time. And I know 5 to 7 minutes can be hard for some of y'all because there's just so many things you offer to get it all in. But I think you did a fantastic job of really giving a big overview. And I think the procurement support you guys give is something that I don't know if people realize. I get that question almost every day about how can I get involved more in the procurement process. So definitely, you know, reach out and learn more about that. It's a great resource that they provide. So thank you again. And now
Thank
I'm
you.
excited to introduce Grady Johnson with the Harbor Entrepreneur Center. If you haven't stopped by their beautiful facility, I'll say new because it's still moved in about a year ago. I definitely recommend coming in. I spend a good amount of time myself there. So Grady, I will pass it over to you.
All right. So just to jump in, Harbor Entrepreneur Center has been around here in the Charleston region for over 12 years, founded by a couple of local entrepreneurs who were looking around in the ecosystem, realized they didn't have any peers to talk to ask questions, so started working down the road to create an entrepreneur center so that we could have within the ecosystem some peer-to-peer interaction, and so that was sort of the genesis of the entrepreneur center. We have 2 locations serving the Charleston region. We're the lead agent for the one region strategy here in the Charleston region. We're the lead agent for entrepreneurship and innovation, so we take a leading role in the strategy of the region, as well as doing some of the nuts and bolts interaction down at the ecosystem level. I also want to give a shout out to the SCRA and the town of Mount Pleasant. If it wasn't for their support, we wouldn't have this beautiful location that we have in Mount Pleasant. So we'll go to the next slide. So we have over 65 entrepreneurs in residence here in the Charleston region, adding in our both of our locations. We're probably more like 70. Every time I count them, somebody either moves in or moves out. So I just quit and just said, okay, over 65. And the thing that makes an entrepreneur center is it's filled with entrepreneurs. And so the difference in my mind, the way that I like to think about what we do is that we've filled these bricks and mortar locations with an eclectic mix of entrepreneurs. It's not remote workers, and it's not an incubator. It's an actual entrepreneur center full of maturing and matured businesses at the C-suite level, and that makes a really powerful platform for peer-to-peer mentoring, which is really what we've always been about, which is collision between entrepreneurs. And we know that if we get entrepreneurs together for whatever the reason, and they meet each other, good things will happen. They'll just start forming companies, helping each other, because being an entrepreneur is a very lonely existence. As an entrepreneur, nobody really understands you and what makes you tick besides other entrepreneurs. Next slide. So just a brief introduction to our events and programs. Our our Harbor Accelerator program. That's an annual program that we do, and we bring young companies in, and they get we surround them with our experienced mentors, and we help them get through from beyond the phase where they are. We generally accept companies into the accelerator program that are beyond startup, where somebody's got an MVP, they have some kind of beta users or customers, paying customers, and we can then surround them with the expertise and the programming that they need to take them to the next level. It's not specifically to take them toward equity investment. I would say, though, that 60% or so of our companies coming to the accelerator are going to be looking for some kind of equity investment. So we make sure to drive them towards revenue as quickly as we can. That's our main focus, is helping these younger companies get out of that dangerous stage. I think someone earlier, maybe it was Matt, had that slide, the valley of death, which I love. I think I'm going to steal that. And we help drive them towards revenue as quickly as we can get them, so that they can have a better position to go seek investment or bootstrap the company. There's really, one of the misnomers out there in entrepreneur land is, oh, everybody's got to go pitch for investment. I love the concept of just go and earn the money and grow the company on your own. It's not for everybody, especially if you're trying to scale it rapidly. But some endeavors, I think the founders get a little sidetracked thinking they've got to go pitch. That's just my little soapbox. So the other program is Propel. We've got a Relentless Challenge grant this year that we're launching Propel, and Propel is we've positioned it in the ecosystem. There's a gap after companies get some investment, or maybe they've been bootstrapping for a while. Sometimes they hit a flat spot, a plateau, and Propel is designed to go in and take a look under the hood of that company and get them back on track, create some data around that research that our mentors will do. This is also a mentor-driven program, and so we're really excited about that, and we're kicking that off this year. Next slide. We also have Forum. Forum is peer-to-peer mentoring. These are groups of around 8 entrepreneurs, and they are grouped together so that they are alike in stage of entrepreneurship. So we've got some forum groups where the group has been together more than 12 years, and they're highly seasoned entrepreneurs. Many of them in that group have exited multiple times and started new companies. And it's a everything on the table, peer-to-peer mentoring, deep dive into personal, professional, and it's a really amazing program. Annual retreat is our strategic planning retreat we do every year. It's a unique event for strategic planning. Next slide. Launch Fest is we're adding that program this year. It'll be a celebration of launching new companies, and Founders Ball is our annual celebration of entrepreneurship. Those are 2 events we do. Keep on going. Then we do a bunch of happy hours, because we know if you get people out and talking, good things happen. And we do a lot of lunch and learns where, topically driven things, and it's not always at lunch. We sometimes do them at breakfast. It's just, variety of topics from IP to HR to whatever our local entrepreneurial community needs. Something bubbles up, we'll probably do a lunch and learn for it. Next one. And we do movie nights. This week it's Repo Man. So when was the last time you saw that? Welcome back to the 80s, boys and girls. So we do movie nights, just fun things, get people out of their offices, get together, eat a little popcorn, and create some relationships. Next. Takeaways for you guys. Accelerator applications are opening up August 1. So if you know a young company that could fit in, send them to us. Propel applications. If you got a company out there that could use a little help, I'd love to talk about it. Come over here for an event and come networking with us, or come rent some space and hang out with the cool kids every day. I mean, that's really where the magic happens. Looking for volunteers, mentors. We've got about 50 highly qualified mentors on our list right now, so we're always adding more. And we need some money. Sponsor us. So that's me. I'm done. Thank you, guys.
I like it. Thank you, Grady. I think everyone here was here to learn about money. So now you're, it's a good place to be asking for it, right? So
the best way to get money is ask for it.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good tip right there, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Grady. Like he said, and Caroline said, with GrowCo in the last event, the best way to really get involved is to go and check these places out. There's fantastic community happening. I'm really noticing the uptick since COVID. It kind of these spaces seem to kind of go quiet, and it took a little while to get things moving and grooving again. But now you walk into any of these in the whole state, and you're really starting to see the energy happening. And to Grady's point, the collisions of great minds. So I just recommend that you step into one and get to know people in your own community. They're great support. All right. With that being said, with great support. I'd like to pass this on to Peter Shan with the Business Development of South Carolina, and you can take it from here.
Jamie, thank you. It's great to be with everyone today. I'm Peter Shan, I'm president of Business Development Corporation. We have a sister company, Certified Development Corporation, so some people refer to us as BDC, CDC, but it's the same company. I wanted to point out our website there, great takeaway. I'll talk about 3 major loan programs over the next few minutes. Our website has one-page summaries of things you can download as a PDF version, email them to your friends who may be interested in this, and just as a reminder of what I've spoken about today, but great summaries. All right, next. So you've never heard of BDC, but BDC is a privately owned non-bank mission-based lender. We're the oldest SBA lender in South Carolina, so we've been around over 60 years. Our mission is accomplished by providing growth capital to small businesses, and we have a special emphasis on trying to reach underserved markets and underserved businesses. We have a network of 38 member banks, so your bank in South Carolina is probably one of our member banks. The 3 main loan programs that we offer are SBDC and the 2 main SBA programs, SSBCI, SBDC is my good friend up there. SSBCI, but also the SBA 7A and the SBA 504 programs. And you can think of these loans, this type of capital as being senior debt, senior secured debt primarily, but also secured, subordinated but secured debt. Okay, Jamie. The first program to talk about is SSBCI. It's a loan participation program. It's in partnership with your bank, and it is a fixed asset financing program. If you are in need of fixed assets in the amount of $100,000 up to $20 million, then this program could work for you. The way it works is that BDC purchases a portion of your bank's loan and subordinates its interests to the bank in the event of default. And this has the effect of lowering the risk for the bank. So the bank may be willing to take on a more risky loan than it normally would if it's got us there in a subordinated position. The interest rates on these financings are determined by the bank. So these are bank terms. Bank terms are the most attractive form of capital that I have found. And so our goal as small businesses is to try to become bankable for our debt. The eligible use of proceeds is going to be to purchase owner-occupied real estate. And owner-occupied is going to be defined as 51% up to 100% occupied by your own business, or to purchase large equipment. And the equipment does not necessarily have to be installed into owned property. It can be installed into leased property. With this program, the minimum down payment from the borrower is 5%. That is very low compared to what most banks would look for. Most banks are going to look for a minimum of 15% down and somewhere up sometimes into 25, 30% down. So that's very good. This program, I need to make a point, cannot finance startups. It must have cash flow, must be cash flow positive, must underwrite for this debt. Okay, next slide. Next program to talk about is the SBA 7A loan program. This is the biggest SBA program in the country, and it is also the most flexible loan program that we offer. The maximum loan is up to $5 million. The minimum that we would want to entertain is around $100,000. And the use of the proceeds of this loan are much more flexible than the other one I just spoke of. You can purchase land and building, expand or renovate your property. You can construct new facilities. You can purchase equipment or fixtures or leasehold improvements. Leasehold improvements would be on space that you actually do not own, but you rent. The loans can be used for working capital. It can be used to refinance debt. We actually have a 7A loan going right now where the refinance of high interest rate debt will result in a savings to the small business of $55,000 a month in cash flow savings. So it's a no-brainer for them to do that. You can purchase inventory with the proceeds or acquire another business. About 25% of all SBA loans are for what they call BizAct loans, where you will buy another business and finance it. There's very little collateral in those types of transactions, so the banks aren't crazy about doing that without an SBA guarantee. Next slide. I show you the terms here on the 7A, 5 years for working capital, 10 years for BizAct and equipment and leasehold improvements. Refinance debt is 10 years, and also real estate and construction loans are 25 years. The current rate is 11.25, and that's floating, tied to prime. If Fed lowers the prime rate, then that rate goes down as well. If your loan is under $1 million, there are no guarantee fees. And if you do have closing costs and fees, those can be financed. There's a packaging fee of up to $2,500, which is an application fee we wouldn't charge if we didn't think we could do the loan. Next slide. This is another fixed asset financing program, the SBA 504. It's known as the 50-40-10. The bank finances 50% of your project. We, representing SBA, would finance 40%, and the borrower, you would put down 10%. The SBA's portion is as a second mortgage, so first mortgage, second mortgage, and equity. This allows the bank to take on more risky loans as well. This is very attractive project because for equipment, you can do 10-year financing, and for real estate, 25 years. Next slide. The interest rates on this are below market. So the SBA portion is at 6.2% today, fixed for 25 years. That compares to around 7.5% fixed for 5 years on the bank's portion of the debt. So very attractive for this owner-occupied program. Loans of $100,000 up to $5 million. There are fees that SBA charges. Most of those are rolled into the loan. And it's a 10% down payment program, but you must add 5% if you're a startup, so that'd be 15%. And if it's a special purpose property, another 5%. Next slide. I want to end on a visual here. Top left corner is a typical owner-occupied building. A lot of businesses need something just like that, perfect for SSBCI or the 504. On the right-hand side is a 51% owner-occupied. It really looks like a piece of investment property or a strip mall. As long as your business occupies 51%, we can count that as owner-occupied. And then at the bottom, my favorite piece of equipment, some brewery equipment, that is eligible for the fixed asset financing the 7A or the SSBCI program. So all three of those. Jamie, that's me. I'll stay on in case there are questions at the end.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. Like you said, you know, I don't know if everyone is familiar with what you provide. So I thank you. And it is more of a traditional piece of funding, but sometimes we all start to think of the different VCs and all the ways they can go there. And there is traditional support in the state. So I think it was important to show what you guys do and how much you guys are able to provide that needed kind of capital and through the loan fund. So thank you so much. Looking forward to moving on to Rihanna. I had the pleasure to get to speak at the Charleston Defense Contractors Association symposium last year and learn even more about the great work that Palmetto Tech Bridge, NIWC, and the Navy do in SBIRs and different ways of supporting small business. So looking forward for you guys to hear more from Rihanna. So I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Rihanna Susko. I am a defense contractor with Ignite Digital Services, and I support the NIWC Atlantic Palmetto Tech Bridge. If we can go to the next slide. So what is a tech bridge? The way I like to think about them is as a franchise. So you'll see on the next slide in a minute, there's 19 different tech bridges, and the Palmetto Tech Bridge is just one of those 19. So kind of think about like franchising a McDonald's. You have all these different ones, and each one kind of has their specialty or their menu or the specific things that we focus on. But each tech bridge was formed under the Office of Naval Research in conjunction with Naval X. And they very much do work as a bridge to really bridge the gap in technology and ideation between industry and academia and bringing technology to the Department of Defense, as well as working with state and local governments. So really just, you take all of these different facets and try to make sure that the innovation is reaching each one in a really collaborative way. So we can go to the next slide. And here is the map of the 19 different tech bridges that I was talking about. You can see us in the Palmetto Tech Bridge down there in South Carolina. I love to point out we also have a tech bridge in Japan as well as the UK. The Hawaii one, would love to visit that one, have not yet, but we have partners all across the US and some of our partner territories as well. So you can go to the next slide. So the Palmetto Tech Bridge specifically is based out of NIWC Atlantic in Charleston, South Carolina. And our focus areas are AI and ML, assured comms and cybersecurity, as well as live, virtual, and constructive. So each tech bridge will have similar overlapping focus areas, but those are specific to the Palmetto Tech Bridge. So say if your company focuses in something outside of that, especially if it's in the scope of defense and tech right now, then I'm sure that there's another tech bridge that is working on that if we are not. So I'm always able to connect you to a different tech bridge as well as people within the NIWC command. So our big thing at the Palmetto Tech Bridge is focusing on dual use solutions. So solutions that meet both the national defense needs as well as the region's economic strengths. To really create innovative commercial products. So you can see some of the ways that we're doing it over on the right-hand side. One of the ways is through a partner intermediary agreement, like the one that we have with SC Competes, part of the reason I'm here today, so thank you. We also do educational partnership agreements. So we have a few with different universities across South Carolina and a little bit beyond. We also do prize challenges a couple times a year. So with those, someone within the NIWC command, someone who's focusing on a specific technology development will say, hey, we have this problem and I really think that there's an industry solution out there. So we go and we put the topic out, and then industry can then submit their ideas and they go up in front of a board. Really kind of reminds me of Shark Tank, but it's more fun in my opinion. So they go up in front of a board and pitch their ideas, and at the end they pick a winner, and they will win the prize challenge money. We also do tech talks and STEM outreach, problem curation events, and then workforce development and training. And then if you can go to the next slide. So this is primarily my focus area because I am the SBIR STTR coordinator for the Tech Bridge. I do a lot of the outreach. So of course I had to dedicate a slide or two to just SBIR. So this is typically a presentation in itself, but just to keep it brief, the SBA has their overall SBIR program, which then boils down to a bunch of different federal programs. So of course, the Department of Defense has their own. And then within that, the Army has a SBIR program, Air Force, NASA, and Navy. Taking that down even further, so NIWC is part of the NAVWAR command. NAVWAR has its own SBIR office. So I have the contacts for that at the end, but that's the one that I'm primarily focused on. However, we do work really closely with other DoD SBIR offices. So even if it goes outside of Navy SBIR, I've talked to companies that say that they've had, you know, a SBIR in the past that they're working on a phase 3 with the Air Force, and they want to bring that technology over to the Navy, and then how we can work with them on that. So it's always cool to see kind of the different collaboration across all the different branches. But I'm not going to get into SBIR too much more. I saw that 3-phase has an upcoming brief, so if you're interested in that, you can definitely reach out to me or make sure you see that brief. But if we can go to the next slide. All right, this is my last piece on SBIR. So this is some old-ish data. It's from 2021, but it is pretty similar this year and last year as well. So this is Navy-wide. There was 171 topics that were put out in that 1 year. And of those, we had just over 2,800 proposals that were sent out or sent into the Navy. And from there, we had 585 phase 1 awards. So these phase 1s are really just to establish technical merit and feasibility. And from these awards, it then transferred into 271 phase 2 awards. So this is building and testing the actual prototypes and really working on that technology. And from there, this goes beyond the scope of the Navy, but there are naval programs to help you get there as well. The commercialization in phase 3, there was $921 million worth of commercialization efforts in 2021. So again, the data this year and last has been relatively similar. So if you can go to the next slide. That is it for my presentation. Just some contact info for you. The director of the Palmetto Tech Bridge is Eric Gardner, and he is super tied in with NIWC Atlantic. So if anyone, you know, ever needs a connection within there, he is a great one to go to. And I am also very happy to help talk about SBIRs or any of the other Palmetto Tech Bridge programs that I just mentioned. And then if anyone has any specific questions about NAVWAR and their SBIR program, Shadia Zoom is the senior program manager at NAVWAR SBIR. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rihanna.
Thank you.
And I will say, SE Decoded this year will have a extended panel about SBIRs and featuring not just Navy, but other branches. So we're really excited to kind of have that conversation. So stay tuned if you would like to attend and learn more. I'll also note that I think to most companies that have not stepped into defense or procurement or state work, it can seem overwhelming. But I definitely recommend if you think you have something that could solve a problem or, you know, fill a gap or a need in the world of military tech, to look into this, because it is a great community and there are amazing amount of resources to learn. It is a lot, but there is definitely a link somewhere on the internet that will teach you a lot. I was fascinated to kind of dig into it myself. So just kind of a PSA to not give up and to reach out, because there's a lot of support if needed. So thank you, Rihanna. And all right, looking forward, ending strong with Herbert Drayton with High Mark Capital. Get the privilege of being able to work with Herbert for many years and in many different ways. So I will let you take it from here, Herbert.
Great. Well, Jamie, it's great to be on this call with everyone. It's a great refresher of all the products and services available to entrepreneurs across the state. I'll comment that with Grady, I did have one company that we took through cohort number 3 at the Harbor Entrepreneur Center. And I was also part of the forum group, and everyone else on the call I know, excepting Rihanna. So good to meet you. Next slide, Jamie. We are a venture capital firm launched in 2021, and our focus we invest in scalable solutions that solve real world problems. And what does that mean? I like to tell folks that we want to solve problems that require a constant interaction with customers and clients, not necessarily person to person, but a platform that they have to use every day, just like toothpaste or floss. So those are real world problems. We source SaaS-ready commercial IP from federally funded research and development centers. And for those of you on the call who don't know what a federally funded research and development center is, there's 38 of them in the United States, and they work for the federal agencies to solve the hard problems. One of our partners is MITRE. MITRE created our nation's air traffic control system, and they also created our nation's weapons guidance defense system. MITRE, along with MITRE, actually runs 5 of the research and development centers. The other 33 are ran by other organizations. They all have IP that I would classify as dormant, where they solve the problem for a federal agency and the IP has a commercial use. So what we've been doing is purchasing the rights to the IP and then standing up a company around the IP. We did one last year with a cybersecurity training platform. We've got a mental health platform we're doing this year, digital mental health platform, and another platform that processes FOIA requests from the public and other agencies. Also, with that in mind, everything is SaaS-based. We do have at least 2 early stage SaaS companies, all based here in South Carolina, and they're all startups, pre-revenue, pre-Series A companies that we're focused on. I will say that the founders for all the companies that we've made a commitment to so far, Black female, white female, 2 African-American males, and an Asian American. Next slide. The criteria, innovative. Everything that we do right now is focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning. That just, you see the next bullet there, sustainable solutions. Want to lean into the high tech. Everything that we're getting from MITRE is high tech, and we do have one platform that came in that we're working on that we did not source from MITRE. Couple of key things. One is the company has to be domiciled in the state of South Carolina. We are an SSBCI recipient. And also we look for companies that have an anchor client or a strategic partner. One of the good things about sourcing IP from MITRE and other FFRDCs is that we typically can identify a customer based on the sponsoring agent that requested the IP be created. So we spin it out. MITRE cannot sell back to the federal government or the public because the IP is owned by the public. But once they spin it out, we get to put some new skins on it, add some enhancements, and then we can actually turn around and sell it back to the federal agency that sponsored the original creation of the IP. Next slide. And here's what's in the pipeline for us. Everything's B2B or B2G. Stay away from consumer. B2C, just not a space that I'm familiar with. And we do try to focus on areas where the state has a focus as well: health tech, logistics, data science, advanced manufacturing. The entertainment technology is one that jumped out. We're going to make that investment in Q4 of this year. It's a company based in Colombia. Fascinating company. I can't wait until we can publicly share what we're going to do with that young man. Another African-American male who moved his company from Atlanta to the Columbia area. And he's in a nondescript area in Columbia, in a strip mall. You pull up, you don't know what's going on. And I walked the facility with this guy and simply asked him, what is the value of the equipment that you have in this facility? And it's right north, just north of $3 million in equipment that he has to run his business there. So he's the real deal, very surprising. Next slide. Our anchor investors, Bank of America was actually our anchor investor. And as I mentioned, SC Invest through SSBCI matching funds, they're an investor in the fund as well. I will say here that a number of the companies that we've passed on, they all had a couple of things in common. They all had a vanity board. So I encourage anyone who's on the call, if you are taking resources from an external source, you should have a real board and not a vanity board. I spent 30 years with the vanity board, and all they did was tell me every great idea I had was a great idea, and 75% of them sucked, but no, there were no adults in the room. They don't have an understanding of their financials. I found that most entrepreneurs could use some business financial literacy training. They were going to markets where they were trying to push their way into it instead of markets where their product or service was being pulled into it. And finally, none of them wanted to engage with mentors and coaches. Next slide. Just my background, and Jim, we'll fly past this, but spent 30 years at a boutique management investment firm. We had about 18 transactions during that time with 6 exits, good IRR. At our peak, we had clients in 38 states, British, UK, Canada, and British Virgin Isles. And I sit on the SEC's Capital Formation Advisory Committee, which is a fascinating committee to sit on as well. And I think the last slide is just contact information. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Please connect with Herbert. He's doing some really cool things, especially with MITRE and the IP. I think it's a way to get some ideas that have kind of been rolling in someone's head that doesn't know how to get those going. If you can connect that to an IP that they have, I think it's an interesting way to take on some smart ideas. So with that being said, we have hit the end of our speakers, and it is time for questions. I haven't seen any come through, which is shocking to me because I usually get a million questions anytime anyone says, how can I connect with people in the funding resource capital world? So this is your time to be able to get that face-to-face Q&A. While we wait for someone to maybe potentially put a question in here, I will ask a question that I asked last time that got some good answers, and see who would want to answer this. When I'm on the road and I'm speaking to a lot of companies, especially in the tech community, they're asking, what is the number one mistake you see when somebody is putting together a deck or a pitch to you? What is like the one, mistake you see consistently that someone maybe could avoid from getting a tip from one of y'all? Anything there?
Yeah, I got
Herbert?
Jamie, if I could. I think that common thing that I've seen, not just in this ecosystem, but others as well, so not picking on here, but is putting the pitch deck together without doing the homework behind it. A lot of the point of the pitch deck is usually to get you to funding, and to get to funding, you should have gone through an exercise of capitalization planning to understand not only what your capital requirements are based on your operating plan, but also thinking forward in terms of, what's your valuation of the company and how much capital makes sense for the company and how much are you willing to dilute. Poor planning can lead to not only you in the future owning less of the company, and maybe even to the point where it's your morale drops because of it, all the way to you've overcapitalized the company and you got too much capital in the company versus what you need. And then finally, I would say, spend time in your data room, get your house in order a little bit and get all your documents together. Because if someone bites on the pitch deck, the first question they're going to ask is, hey, I want to see what you've got, what's your data room look like? And so there's a lot of work that goes into prepping yourself before the pitch deck. I would even argue that having a strategy around fundraising is kind of a key thing to focus on as well before the pitch deck, and then rolling the pitch deck out so that when you do have a bite with your pitch deck, you've got everything in order to be able to execute when the time comes.
Great. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you for navigating through my slides for me. NextGen, the Greenville Entrepreneur Network, is up in the upstate. This is a little bit about me and my background. I came here from Cincinnati about 3 years ago, where I did similar work, fostering economic development through fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. You can go to the next 2 slides, why supporting startups matter. This is something I hope we can all agree upon, that startups create net new jobs. It's important for a community to be to celebrate that type of diversity. It can't all be manufacturing. They can't all be retail. They can't all be hospitality and tourism. It needs to be a mix of that. And I think you can't show me a community, a state, a region, a county in the United States or really across the world that says we don't want to support entrepreneurs, right? So this is something that we feel is important and kind of gives us our why. Go ahead to the next slide. Some good news. Earlier this year, we were featured in The Economist, of all places. And one thing that I'm proud of is that headline says, America is in the midst of a startup boom, but the byline isn't Palo Alto, California. It doesn't say Austin, Texas. It says Greenville, South Carolina. So that's a testament to the foundation that has been established here decades ago and some of the work that we're all doing to support that. Go ahead to the next slide. So at NextGen, our mission is to help the entrepreneurial community grow. We got that down to as few words as possible. There's a lot of eliminating there to make sure that really held through, but it's community and growth are really the important things. And on our vision, what we see is a robust ecosystem where people can build a business and grow a business in a place they love to live. So go to the next slide. This is a small but mighty team. There's 4 of us on that team. And, go ahead to the next slide. We do 3 things. I'm trying to keep this fast because, Jamie said, I got 37 minutes to get this all in. And, I'm trying, no, 7 minutes. I get it. So next, then we do 3 things. The first thing is we steward the broader entrepreneurial ecosystem, that which we have nicknamed #StartupGreenville. We view our role as encompassing and to broaden our arms, our wingspan around a lot of different entities that are supporting high growth entrepreneurs here. The second thing we do is provide direct support to high growth entrepreneurs and their teams through a series of program services and events. And then the third thing we do is measure the impact. Is any of this working? We like to have our finger on the pulse of the ecosystem. I call it the Fitbit of the ecosystem, or the Strava of the ecosystem, measuring a bunch of different things so that we know where are the gaps and where are the overlaps. What branches do we need to prune? Where do we need to water more? But those are the 3 basic things that we do. Go ahead to the next slide. So stewarding the ecosystem, we came up with a brand around which we can all rally. NextGen acts as the convener, the guide, the problem solver. Go ahead to the next slide. We mapped out that ecosystem into 66 different nodes that all kind of hover around that same core. So imagine you start off in that upper left-hand side in the imagining quadrant and then work your way around to establishing, growing, and scaling. We invite this group around the same table on a monthly basis. We do that first Wednesday of the month. Last week, we had about 25 people from 20 different organizations. We give each one of them about 4 minutes to go over how did it go last month, what worked, where'd you get stuck, what do we need to know. There's a lot of baton passing and a lot of just information sharing, and that's important for us as a community to realize that we're all connected. It is not a linear path of being a successful founder, and there are no wrong front doors to the ecosystem. However you came in, however you got here, you are all a part of the Startup Greenville ecosystem. Go to the next slide. So from the second thing that we do, supporting high growth founders and their teams, what we look for, so there's a lot of jargon there, right? What's a high growth founder? Everybody says that a lot. So the way that we look at it on the left-hand side is these are some of the matrix view that we give to it. And first and foremost, the question we ask is, does this thing scale? Does it go beyond the Jamie and Eric show? Would you hire another person? Would you open up another store? What's your propensity to scale? The second thing we look for is, does this generate wealth? Not just for the owners, right? Does it generate wealth for an investor? Would anybody else put their money into this? So if somebody puts $50,000 in you, are you going to give them $55,000 back? $50,001 back? Like, what's the propensity to generate wealth there? The next thing is have the regional impact. We are not a nationwide, we're not a statewide organization. We're very focused on the city of Greenville, Greenville County, then the Greenville MSA, the metropolitan statistical area of about 4 counties, and then the upstate. The lines get a little blurry when we use that term, but that's we want to look at the regional impact there. And then finally, does it create jobs? At the end of the day, we are an economic development driver. We can't get away from that we're about creating jobs. But at the same stretch, I can't lead with that, because we're always going to lose out to a call center or a manufacturing plant that is a much bigger facility and a lot of jobs. But creating jobs is important. Go ahead to the next slide. So there are 12 different things that we do, from programs and services and events. So those top 2 blocks are education programs and services. We have an Accelerator program. We're wrapping that up. We're in the final weeks of that. It's basically 8 weeks of content spread out over 12. We don't give equity, or we don't take equity. We don't give any stipend for that, but it's more of an education accelerator. And then workshops and growth labs. We had one this week on HubSpot and teaching people about how to use a CRM. The next 4 are our mentoring continuum, going from the MIT licensed VMS program all the way down through office hours. We've got 2 entrepreneurs in residence right now that are kind of like SEAL Team 6. These are the subject matter experts that we swoop in to specific entrepreneurs to give them that dedicated advice. And then the last 2 are networking types of programs and services, peer-to-peer type of industry-specific roundtables, as well as CEO-only lunches. Next slide. These are our events. We have 2 signature events. The one I want to really talk about is Next Venture Summit. That's coming up in a month. Then we do the regular ones. I call them bus stop events that happen with regularity. These are monthly type of things, founders forums, and then startup drinks, which we call SUDs. My last slide will focus on, go ahead to the next slide. This is about Venture Summit itself. So this is our 9th year of doing it. And last year we incorporated a match day where we brought investors from all over the country. And I see David on this call. Great to have good growth there this year. That'd be great. Investors from all over the country to match up with founders from around the region in a speed dating format. So last year we did 186 meetings, had 186 pairings in just one afternoon. So what do we do with that information, right? We want to make sure that we're keeping in touch with the founders to make sure that they feel prepared for the questions that they're getting from the funders. How are things going? Are they staying in touch with you? Do you feel like you're answering things right? And then from the funder standpoint, we want to know, why didn't my kid make the soccer team, right? What do we need to work on? Not that everybody needs to invest in our companies, but please give us that feedback so that we can work on that with our clients. Let's go to 2 more slides down just to kind of finish up the measuring the impact part. And I'll end with this. This is what our 127 clients looked like at the end of last year. This is the verticals that they're represented, some of the minority stats, the revenue, the funding that they raised in last year. I believe that these are some of the key performance indicators that you can measure as an entrepreneur support organization. There's no end to the debate of, you shouldn't measure that. You can't measure this stuff. You just know in 20 years from now if it works or not. I call BS on that. And I think there are some things that you can measure. And there are some things that we can say what's growing, what's staying the same, and what's shrinking. This is just a snapshot of what we've pulled from our constituency. How'd I do?
You did great. Fantastic.
Yeah, you don't need to go through it. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, if it's all in order, yeah.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you.
Eric and his team, like you said, small but mighty, do a phenomenal job. And if you're in the upstate area, I highly recommend. And if you're not in the upstate area, I still recommend reaching out, connecting, especially at their event coming up later this year. And figuring out a way to kind of be a part of the ecosystem, because they do a really great job of kind of accepting all phases of a startup. So thank you so much, Eric. And next, I'm excited to welcome Tyler with 3-phase. I will let you take it from here. Just let me know when you'd like me to hit next.
All right, thanks. And thanks for everyone's time. So 3-phase is a SC Commerce funded program that focuses on a pot of money the federal government gives out every year. It's about $4 billion in funding that focuses on small businesses and research and development. You can go on to the next slide. So, what companies are eligible for this pot of money? And I'm going to keep it really high level for this, but, you have to be a small business, which is less than 500 employees. Most of the groups I work with are, less than 5 employees, but, there are some bigger companies that show up that go after this money. But in general, it's the small, early stage, pre-revenue company that we work with. You have to be for profit, so that comes up as an issue sometimes. Independently owned and operated in the US, so sometimes that becomes an issue. Another key point here is the research has to be performed in the US as well. And there's some other details on this slide that are, more specific to companies that we can, I can always get into individually. But those are the main points. So if you skip to the next slide. So what companies are fundable under this program? It's a broad swath, but in general, the things I like to say is it's got to be a defendable technology. It doesn't always have to be patented, but most of them are. It's got to be something that's, if you're just putting together a novel kind of website business concept, SBRs may not be the fit for you. But the funding is focused on real technology development, basically. A lot of times the ideas are research backed. So we do work with some app types, companies, but they're usually coming out of academia and focused on, say, health research or something of that nature that has, substantial research backing it. Product market fit is important. We help a lot of companies figure this out, but it's a key element. And the bigger issue, which we don't expect you to know coming in, is that it's got to fit with a topic with one of the agencies. So not all technologies are fundable under the program. There are definitely things that just don't fit an agency's needs, but we're happy to talk to you about that. Credible team is important, but again, if you're a solo entrepreneur, we can have that conversation and see how we can fill the gaps you might have from a technical or business perspective. So move on to the next slide. Again, things that aren't quite fundable under the program, if you're just kind of bolting together existing technology that doesn't tend to fit with any of the agency's needs or funding desires. Innovative business ideas that do not necessarily lead to technology innovation, that can be an issue as well. No technical expertise. So we run into this from time to time, and sometimes we partner them with universities to fill that gap. So it is potentially fillable, but it needs to be filled. You can't just be an entrepreneur with on the business side and not have technical talent and get funded. It doesn't fit an agency or topic like we talked about. Preliminary data is ideal. So like something has been done to show that this is going to work. And, if there's no research to be done, either evaluating the product or, some sort of research and development, then you're probably not at the stage for us. Go ahead to the next slide. Go one more. So use of funds, I just want to kind of highlight, in any grant, there's 3 buckets. The direct costs are basically the funding that goes directly to doing the research. They do tend to give you a pot of indirect money, which allows you some funny money to pay for your business operations, but don't count on a lot of money there. And then most grants allow for a fee or profit, which is money you can spend on whatever you want, but that's only about 7% of the grant. Keep going. How can we help? We help with all aspects of getting the proposal together, from registration to teaming. If you need to, we can help you get support letters. We have templates for all the documents you're going to have to put together and to-do list. And finally, the most important is we dive into your story and make sure it's going to fit with the agency's needs. Go ahead to the next slide. This is just a highlighting of the different agencies. The ones that have stars next to them fund medical technologies. We do a lot of work in medical technologies. Again, I'm happy to dive into anyone's specific questions on the different agencies, but I just wanted to give a scattering of everyone who funds these sort of things. And then if you go to the next slide, I'll wrap it up. So, feel free to reach out to us directly. Kyle and I are the main points of contact to follow up with. And, you can always go to our website and fill out our application forms regarding if you want to apply to be a three-phase company. Again, it's free, but feel free to follow up with us if you think you're a fit.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tyler. I think there's a lot of good takeaways from there. And I know one that I took away personally was the research team piece of it, the data you got to come in with. I think that's an important piece. When we're head down, kind of making the product and doing everything, we sometimes forget about the data that supports it. So just a great call out there. And I'd also say, I recommend that check out all the organizations that fund them and spend some time on their websites as well and become smarter on what they're doing and what their needs are. And that could help you kind of fill some of those gaps when you're in the midst of applying through three-phase. So thank you again, Tyler. Appreciate it. Looking forward to our next speaker, David Mendez. I'll let you take it from here. I've been able to work with David for years now, and I'm excited to have him talk about Good Growth Capital.
Thank you, Jamie. Hello, everybody. A lot of familiar faces. It's nice to see you all. I am managing partner of Good Growth Capital, one of 5 partners. Next slide. What we have at Good Growth what we've done since 2017 is launched really 5 funds. We have 2 fund families. The majority of the capital is deployed out of our Good Growth funds, and we're currently on Fund 3. The first one was launched in 2017. It was a small fund, $5 million. The second general Good Growth Fund was launched in 2020. That was a $92 million fund. And the third one is currently active. We are investing out of it, and we are closing our fundraise for that fund at the end of this year. It will likely be about the same size as our second fund. We also have another fund family called the GGC Infinite Corridor Funds. It's named after the famous hallway out of MIT. And out of those funds, invest in pre-seed deals and some early seed. So it's a feeder fund to our general fund, and we don't promise any return profile for that fund. It's very risky. It's at the earliest stage, and that's where we put some money into some promising technology that's literally at the lab level, the very earliest stage. We also have a very robust co-invest program where we invite our limited partners, who are the investors in our fund, to co-invest alongside us in the companies in which we invest. And I think we've facilitated about 30 million of investments through that program. You can see on the right, the timeline there, the Infinite Quarter funds sort of stagger in between our general funds. We're in planning right now to think about a third Infinite Quarter fund after we closed our general fund, our third general fund. We have almost $200 million of assets under management through our different funds and the co-invest program. Next slide. Where we invest, we really look at science and deep technology startups. So with a lens of, is this something that has a societal or impact, and is there a need in the market for it? We like to look at businesses and technologies that are somewhat resilient to economic fluctuations. These are need to have technologies, a lot in the life sciences area and the green tech area, for instance. These are things that aren't necessarily affected too much or as much from economics and market conditions. The 3 areas include life sciences, which are primarily devices, diagnostics, and some therapeutics. It's about 35% of each of our funds portfolio. The second area is called green tech. I also call it environmental sciences or physical sciences. This is where a lot of hardware, advanced materials, energy, batteries, manufacturing technologies, semiconductor, et cetera. So it's sort of a catch-all for most of the hard sciences. And then the third, and that's about another 35% of our portfolio. And then another 30% of our portfolio is in data sciences. So that what we focus on here is less of the application side, meaning less of B2B SaaS software, for instance, but more of enabling software technologies that are enabling those kind of platforms. But we look at a lot of cloud and data infrastructure technologies. We look at, of course, artificial intelligence, and then some of the other areas listed there. There's a lot of overlap between these sectors, as you can imagine, especially in data sciences. There's many of our life sciences companies that are really data science companies, and there's a lot of green tech companies that have a lot of data science incorporated into them as well. And in fact, in life sciences, we have a lot of advanced materials companies that are actually, the application is life sciences, but they're materials companies. So there's some overlap between the three sectors. Next slide, please. We have 5 managing partners. Maureen and Amy, shown here on the left, had been working together for many years after both of them finished their degrees at MIT. Maureen has a PhD from MIT, and Amy is a master's at MIT. Amy moved down to Charleston in 2012 timeframe. And when she and Maureen were looking to put together Good Growth Capital several years later, she pulled myself in. She pulled John Osborne in, who many of you know. John has been in the Charleston area for several decades. And also Carolyn Lasala, who was a retiree from Apple Computer. She was in their data sciences team, joined us as well. So we all formed the fund together in 2017, and we're still together after these 7 years and 5 funds. Next slide. This is a slide I like to really update the data every quarter. It's fascinating to me that when we made investments across 62 companies across our portfolio, the beginning valuations were, if you aggregated this together, was about 831 million. That's not the fascinating number. The fascinating number is how those companies are valued today. So the current value is about 5.2 billion. And that's not because they raised $5.2 billion. This is because they've created value. And so investors are now valuing those companies at much larger valuations than they were in the beginning. And this is, I think, an interesting metric for us to keep track of, because this is what we like to see. We like to see the value appreciation, because when we exit, we need to exit at a higher value. You can also see on the right some of the way we're performing. We've had 3 write-offs since investing. So 3 of our companies have not decided to continue operations. There's going to be many more of them, especially now that we're in our 7th year from our first fund. We're going to start seeing more. Exit-wise, we've had 3 full exits, 1 partial exit, and 1 company that was doing so well, they actually paid a dividend. That particular company is going to experience a very large exit this year. Exits are really what we all plan for, and we've done fairly well there, and we're very happy about where the portfolio is going. And then at the bottom, more than 5 times valuation across all funds, and that's what the graph shows you there. Again, starting at about 831 million, now they're worth 5.2 billion. Next. Our portfolio is spread across the U.S. We have 4 of the partners are here in Charleston. 1 partner, Maureen, is still up in Boston. We have a senior associate in New York, in London, and in Detroit, and we have an ops manager that's based out of Chicago. So we're primarily a virtual team. We have advisors, venture partners, and operating partners across the U.S. as well. So as you can see, as a result, we have a pretty wide distribution of our portfolio, mainly in the East Coast, because that's where most of us are, and most of our networks are, but some also out on the West Coast. We are very mindful of diversity. It's not something that's necessarily ever been a mandate for our team, but it's just a sort of a function of our open minds and how we listen and learn, and will are really focused on technology and aren't focused on finding the Class A Silicon Valley entrepreneur and refunding that person over and over again. We're looking for real core meaningful technology businesses, a lot of which are very much filled with a great diversity. We have about 30% of our companies have women, female founders / CEOs, and about the same metric for persons of color. If you aggregated together all of our companies and their founding teams, 75% of our portfolio do have a diverse founder included. Next slide, please. We also look at it from the impact lens, he's following the UN Sustainable Development Goals. If you look up top, those are the areas that we do have had some impact in. And if you look at the bottom here, the number of portfolio companies that meet some of those goals. So as you can see, it's a good number, and we track this on a quarterly basis as far as the impact we're having around these lines. Next slide. I wanted to also, I just realized I didn't really explain other things about our investment criteria. You saw the sectors in which we invest, but we do invest early. So we invest as early as pre-seed. We enter at pre-seed, seed, or Series A. Most of the time we enter at the seed stage. We do lead about half of our investments, but we're also happy to follow other lead investors or co-lead. We aren't geographically limited. We do actually have one company in France and one in Canada, but the most are in North America. That's just a function of where we are. We also invest in Silicon Valley, but those are typically companies where we've had a relationship with that founder somehow, or an investor that we trust brings us in. It's not a Silicon Valley company that pings a company or an investor that's based in South Carolina looking for money, because that would be a little bit strange. But we welcome conversations with any entrepreneurs that fit within those criteria. And my email is simple. It's david@goodgrowthvc.com. Feel free to reach out to me. And I look forward to hearing about your amazing inventions. Thank you for the time, Jamie.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. You know, a big goal of today is to get that South Carolina bubble bigger,
yes,
right?
higher. That's right.
Yeah, right. Let's get that to match the Boston. So thanks again for the time, and you know, I'll highly recommend that everyone learn more about Good Growth Capital. And also we're about halfway through, so I also ask that you start thinking about your questions that you want to put out there. This is a great time to kind of utilize who's on this call and ask that question that's kind of been sitting in the back of your head. There's no stupid questions, all good. We all want to kind of hear from everybody. So thank you. All right. And with that, we're going to lead over to Derek Willis with SCRA. One thing I will say is SCRA has been kind enough to speak at all 3 of our webinars. So if you want to kind of learn more about SCRA, you can kind of watch the first 2. Because today Derek is going to dig a little bit more into kind of the nitty gritty of what they do in helping in the valley of death, if you will, in their work. So lots of SCRA and the others, and I'm excited to pass it on to Derek.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. If you've participated in these before, I don't want to bore you with what we really do, but I do want to clarify some things. We don't do a really good job at marketing. A lot of people call us SCRA, but we've, you know, one of the things that we've done over the years, and I'm sure the guys on this podcast have talked about prior, is we work really, really early in the ecosystem, and we're starting to get some compelling results. So I've been with the company 16 years, and going in my 17th year. I've almost been there the whole time, and it takes 12 to 13 years to see results from what we do. Getting, you know, pretty proud of some of the numbers that we've got from, you know, the time we started in 06, 07. We've now got about 60 portfolio companies, and we get involved at the early stage. with companies that have novel, unique intellectual property within life science, biotech, advanced materials, alternative fuels, defense, aerospace, and automotive. Anything that fits our cluster strategy, and you have novel IP is where we're going. The idea there is to get involved with the company early on, help reduce the risk of the company, and ultimately, fund the company, make them investment grade to the point where they will ultimately impact our tax base. Our criteria states that 51% of your employees have to be within the state of South Carolina, and your C-suite has to be here too. We've got some pretty stiff terms on companies that try to take our money and will walk out of the state. The impact is need to be here. The way we do this, we have some funds through the Industry Partnership Fund. And this is a pretty unique vehicle. The way we raise money is if you're paying taxes in the state of South Carolina, say you got a $10,000 tax tab, you can contribute $10,000 to the Industry Partnership Fund and get a dollar for dollar state tax credit. It's a pretty powerful vehicle that we have. And then we are the stewards of that money to invest in early stage companies. So a lot of people go, hey, I'm in SCRA. What do you do? So we explain what we do. So the impact that we've had, though, with those contributions are right now, we're about to clear $77 million in investments. Since 2006, we've put $77 million to work. And with some closings over the next couple of days, our fundings, the invested capital will now be worth $3 billion in follow-on funding. So that's the impact, and that's what we've got to work with. So nobody can dispute that we don't have any good investment grade opportunities here now. We can show them those. And to kind of take you kind of behind the scenes and where we get involved and what do we do. I want to walk you through this slide that I've had about 10 years that explains the research and development, the test and evaluate life cycle. Where do we get involved and what's the typical process look like? As you're probably saying, hey, I could use the help, but where do I get engaged? NASA has technology readiness levels, TRLs. You'll see in that top line up there, TRL 1 through 9. Hit one more slide, Jamie. There's one more in there. One more. One more. There you go. All right. So here's where this is the journey. So, the misconception is when you get money, you're doing great. The reality is when you get money, you're starting this nosedive into the valley of death. I want to show you here how the cash flow kind of works with the technology and what we see and where you would engage SCRA. So typically we like to work with companies who are invested their own money. They've got, friends, family, and fools are already in. They're looking for some institutional money, maybe in a series seed stage. And then we'll start to look at, are we to the point where we have a minimal viable product? Do we have a prototype? And typically that is somewhere between what you'll see here, the TRL 5 and TRL 6. When a company gets to that point, they've probably figured out what their market is, what their TAM, SAM, and SOM is. Total addressable market, service addressable market, and service attainable market is what we look for. When they get to readiness level between 5 and 6, they've probably got it figured out. Their prototype's blinking, and they're out of money. They've built a team, they're out of money, they've validated their technology, and they're looking for that next bump of cash to get them out. As down the bottom, you'll see where the cash flow and the technology valley of death vector. That's where we get involved. We get involved, probably start talking to you in the technology readiness 4 area, and then 4 to 5 we get involved, and then 6 we're hoping to seed that with some funds to get you out of that, so that other guys like Dave, Charlie, the rest of the ecosystem starts looking at you, to get you out of that. And then, ultimately, what we try to do is get you to the Launch Inc. board for our $200,000 funding. You're probably asking, hey, you're a nonprofit. How do you make investments and hold equity? The way we're structured is we have Launch Inc. as a 501c3, and then within Launch Inc. we have Launch, which is a 501c3, and we have Launch Inc., which is a C Corp. And Launch Inc. can make investments and hold equity. So my job as a investment manager is to work with you through this valley of death, de-risk you to the point where you're investment grade and you're ready to go to the Launch Inc. board to get $200,000 in investment. Our investment forms vary. We can do a convertible note. We do some saves. Ultimately, we like to convert that to equity in the long run, and we'll do subsequent rounds. We have 5 or 6 companies now that have subsequent rounds. One that's non-characteristics got $1 million, but we've been working on that one for 12 years. So it depends where you are in your process, where your valuation is, and what your if you're meeting your objectives and key results. The exit for us is acquisitions, a liquidity event. We've got a pretty low casualty rate just because we're very close to you all the time. We provide a lot of resources within our resource partner network to help you navigate, to help insulate yourself from risk, to help provide some cover when times are hard. And we're an advocate. We're the advocate for you for other funding out of the process, which is not very easy. We're hoping that you get a really good diligence package that you can take to the next level. And that's all I've got from here. Jamie, if you hit one more slide, and I think there's a red, there you go. That red as indicator, that is kind of where we get involved and get you in this transition. The hardest part of commercialization is that technology readiness level 6 to 9. That's where everything dies. But our job is to help navigate that. And there's after us, we're a very small part of the ecosystem. We work with guys like Dave and Charlie and Tyler using their resources to further insulate the company and to de-risk it to the point where other people will put money into it. And that's kind of where we stand in the ecosystem.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek. You do a fantastic job of giving the full cycle of all things SCRA. And I'll let everyone on the call know, Derek is located in the Charleston area, but there are SCRA reps doing this, throughout the state. You can reach out to Derek in the Charleston Low Country region, or just reach out to him and ask, who's the person I need to connect with if I'm in Aiken or North Augusta, or if I am in Greenville or Fort Mill, and he can connect you to the right person, or reach out to me and I can do the same. So thank you so much, Derek. And now we've got 2 more speakers left. Excited to move on to Venture South. And Charlie, I will let you take it from here.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Good to see everybody. A lot of familiar faces. My name is Charlie Banks. I'm the managing director of Venture South. Next slide. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of a history on Venture South. So about 2008, 2009 timeframe, there were a group of investors in Greenville that wanted to pull some capital together to support entrepreneurs that are coming out of these incubators and accelerators that were popping up. And so this group of investors hired a guy named Matt Dunbar. They started a group called the Upstate Carolina Angel Network, UCAN for short. And UCAN took the next couple of years and built out some processes, built relationships, developed some diligence templates, and really started making small bets in companies that they just thought were interesting. And they, I had just exited a company and was getting involved in that group, and this was about 2010 timeframe. And I really thought what they were doing in Greenville was interesting, and Matt and I became fast friends, and we thought, what if we could take this model that was built here in Greenville and replicate that in other markets across South Carolina? Could we unlock some latent capital on the sidelines? Could we write bigger checks? Could we attract better deals, have bigger exits, and start this capital flywheel of recycling capital? So we did, and we started the South Carolina Angel Network with our third partner, Paul Clark. And we did just that. We went into some markets in South Carolina, and we started these really community-based angel groups in these towns, and quickly realized we hit on a vein of opportunity because folks outside South Carolina were calling us and asking us to come into their community and start these angel groups. So we quickly rebranded to Venture South and have since built it into what it is today. So we're an early stage investment organization. We're based in Greenville. We kind of run things like one large angel syndicate, meaning we've got a lot of folks that are members of Venture South. We also have a family of more traditional venture funds that we co-invest out of as well. And we also have a sister organization called Venture Carolina that runs it's more of an educational nonprofit that has some various educational and programmatic initiatives around primarily teaching investors on how to be effective at the asset class. But we also do some entrepreneur training as well. And I see Pranita Mack on here, who's one of the Palmetto Venture Fellows, which is a program that we run every year that we take about 30 to 40 individuals and we take them through a year-long fellowship, teaching them how to be effective at this asset class as investors. So hello to Pranita. So next slide. So as I mentioned, we're a large syndicate of community-based angel groups. So we're currently in 22 markets across the Southeast. We only invest in Southeast, and there's a lot of science behind that, and it has a lot to do with just the valuations of the companies that are based here that are significantly different than what you would find in Silicon Valley, Austin, Boston, New York. We feel like the valuations you get in the Southeast are in line with the risk that you take in this asset class. Next slide. So just some quick data points on us. So we're right around 550 members at this point. As mentioned, 22 locations. We also have a family of funds, like I said, that we use to co-invest. We have invested in a little over 100. I guess this slide's a little bit outdated, but it's approaching 120 companies right now. It's about 300 rounds of capital. Got a lot of companies that are still at play. So we have a very active portfolio. We're right at $90 million, but really nothing matters as investors, as any of the other investors will tell you, nothing really matters until you start having returns. We've got a pretty good track record related to returning actual value to the members, and just unreleased yet, but we just had a pretty significant exit last week. So we're in the process of returning quite a bit of capital to our members and investors and LPs this week. So we should be hearing about that in the news here soon. But we're really active in the Angel Capital Association, which is our national trade group. I think there's probably 600 or so groups on that, and we're consistently ranked in the top 5 of the groups on that list. So we're excited about that. So next slide. So just real quickly, as I said, we're investing in Southeast companies. The stage, we can spend a lot of time on that, but generally speaking, we're investing in post-revenue companies that are on the way to significant traction and rapid growth. We spend a lot of time in diligence with the team, so that's a really important element of what we're looking at from a diligence standpoint. Market-wise, we're pretty agnostic. We'll look at just about anything that we think will make money for our investors. It's usually some kind of a tech-enabled company, though. We don't do a lot of consumer products or any kind of brick-and-mortar type investing. And the takeaway here from a structure standpoint is we're equity investors. We're not debt investors. We'll look at some convertible notes and things like that, but for the most part, we are investing just pure equity. Next slide. And there's some animations on the slides. You can go ahead and just click through all of them. So in terms of process, we look at about 20 or 30 companies every month. We run them through a process where our investor members and LPs will take part in a screening process. Back up one. There you go. So every month we will screen 4 to 6 companies. We'll take the top vote getter out of that group. We'll start some diligence. While we're doing diligence, the company will go on a bit of a roadshow. So a lot of our meetings, our groups will have a meeting every month. Sometimes they meet quarterly, but for the most part, the company will be on the roadshow during diligence. Assuming diligence is positive, we will structure a deal. We'll present that to our members, and then it's somewhat of a pass the hat model. So our members and investors can opt in or opt out. For the ones that opt in, we'll aggregate that capital. We'll make the investment in the company. Typically, we'll take a board seat or some kind of operational, not an operational, some kind of a strategic board seat, if you will, from a observer standpoint. And then we don't take an operational role in the company, but we do help the company grow and scale to the point where they can start thinking about providing shareholder value. So we'll do that 6 to 10 times a year with new companies. But we've got about 80 or so active companies in the portfolio right now. So we are heavily active investing in the portfolio companies as they continue to grow. So all in all, we'll usually have about 25 to 30 transactions every year. So it's a lot of moving parts. We're real excited to continue to be an active part in the ecosystem. You know, like I said, there's a lot of familiar faces in this group, a lot of you that we have co-invested with, and look forward to continue to be a support to Jamie and your team.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charlie. I always have to, every time I've been on one of these webinars, I've gotten excited about all the resources that are actually in our state that I don't think everybody knows about. And I think there's a real momentum right now in all things VC and startups and technology. So just get excited. And speaking of lots of really cool things and things to be excited about, happy to introduce Jesse. He is a little bit newer to JEDA, so I'll give him kind of a time to be able to talk and get to know everybody. So I will pass that on over to you.
Thank you. And you can ignore the Columbia College. It's obviously a deck that we had used at a board meeting, but it gives a good summary of what the organization is. The JEDA mission statement is right there. It's to promote business and economic welfare. I'm a year into the position as executive director. We have been in existence since 1983, and it was started, I'm going to call it post mill crisis in the Southeast, where the economic activity was stagnant and the legislation was established and the governor enacted the Jobs and Economic Development Authority. We're independent from the standpoint of having a separate board, and we're self-funded from a revenue standpoint. We aren't a drain of taxpayer dollars from that standpoint. And we're there to promote economic development and job activity across the state. As you can see, small manufacturers, hospitals, education facilities, not-for-profit entities, all these entities have a job creation aspect to it. And if you think about some of the larger not-for-profit entities across the state, you can think of hospitals specifically. They're a very, very large employer, and most of them are not-for-profit. So we'll do the tax-exempt bond issuances for those entities, in addition to skilled care facilities, private universities, charter schools. And then on the for-profit side, we will get brought in most of the time through commerce. Our board sits, it mirrors the state house congressional districts. And then we have a governor appointed position, and also Secretary of Commerce either has a seat or he appoints a seat. So when some for-profit businesses come into the state of South Carolina and the state is offering economic development incentives, tax-exempt bond financing can be used. And more recently, we've seen some of that with the Scout announcement in the Midlands, just by example. The other side of this being not a drain of taxpayer dollars, we also on the bond side do not obligate the state. And you'll see this a little later. We sit in between as an entity and create that tax-exempt financing mechanism. But the state does not guarantee, or a local municipality guarantee, any of the bonds. They are out in the open market, and the credit risk is taken by the purchasers. Next slide. So again, this kind of goes back to for-profit versus not-for-profit 501c3 entities. If a for-profit does come to us, it is generally already vetted through the House and voted on, and the state has what is called a carry-forward allocation. So a lot of times, by the time it gets to JEDA's desk, they have vetted it through Commerce, they have vetted it through the House, and we sit in between the last stage of the deal process, and that is the funding mechanism. Next slide. So not a terribly complicated structure, but this just illustrates where we sit. The borrower is at the top, and we are in between the underwriters and the investors. And then off to the side is a trustee. If you think about an analogy, I'm a former banker. If you think about where a bank would sit in this, they actually do carry credit risk. And again, JEDA acts as a conduit bond issuer, sir. So we're not assuming any risk. The investors at the bottom and the borrower at the top are really the two main mechanisms. The benefit, 100% of the benefit of tax exempt financing really is to the borrower's benefit. If you think about an investor in a bond, a taxable bond at say 7%, the investor will pay taxes on that. So their effective yield could go down to say 5% after their effective tax rate. And with tax exempt bonds, if we lend at 5%, they pay no taxes. So it equals itself out. So if you look at who ultimately benefits, it is the borrower. And in our case, we're trying to create an economic incentive for existing and new businesses in the state to create the economic activity and the job creation. Two different parts that are probably not in this. One is kind of, but the underwriter, the first stage I would say is a legal aspect that gets the bonds qualified from a legal structure standpoint. That's the first stage. The second stage is that underwriter. So we at JEDA, we do not underwrite or market the bonds. That's done by large financial institutions that do tax exempt bond work. So they will rate, price, and structure the bond and ensure that there's a market for those bonds. So more recently, we had the largest transaction in the state's history a couple months ago. Novant Healthcare came and bought a few hospitals, systems, but entities, and it was about a $2 billion deal. And the underwriter placed $2 billion worth of debt between 50 to 100 investors. So that to me is a fairly complicated part of the process. We come at the end and we manage the tail end. Next slide. Yeah, this is exactly the same as the other slide. It just kind of really puts it in perspective where you got the borrower and you got the bank placement, and JEDA sits in between where the bond proceeds go out and the repayment comes back, and a trustee is involved in managing those payments. Next slide. This more or less reinforces what we said in the earlier in the first slide, where we are not obligating the state and we're not a drain of taxpayer dollars. The second is a point I would like to make. We do deals in business in the state of South Carolina. There's a provision that says we could do a small amount outside of the state, but we have kind of held fast to investing in the state of South Carolina as an entity. Next slide. Yeah, hate to repeat myself, but that's what this kind of does. Marketplace determines if the bond is marketable. That's on the underwriter. Tax exempt eligibility, that's the lawyers. They are abiding by federal IRS codes. And again, this is a beating a dead horse, and I apologize. We are not obligating the state, and the creditworthiness is determined by the market. Next slide. Oh man, this is the process. I think I dumbed it down pretty good earlier, but this really gets into the weeds on how the process works. By the time a lot of this stuff happens and it gets to JEDA, we can pretty efficiently do our job in 60 days, 2 board meetings and 2 sets of public hearings. So our part is probably the bottom part, and it's very, very efficient. That has nothing to do with me, my predecessor, Harry Huntley, and we have Claudia Miller and Angela Scott on the team. They are very, very good at the process. My job in taking over as executive director was to not mess that up. Next slide. So yeah, on the far left, you see higher interest rate. That's taxable, which we talked about. Tax exempt on the far right is lower due to the tax rate. What this doesn't say is probably the negatives. The main negative, I would say, is the transactional cost. If you could borrow from a bank directly, a lot of times the transactional cost will be a good bit lower just due to bond counsel that's involved. But again, the borrower and the state on large employers will benefit through the bond structure over the long run. Next slide. Yeah, so the purpose, again, retain and expand jobs, enlarge our tax rates for states and local governments, meet the financial and capital needs of small and middle market community, And we would like to target the public and private investment side, where we can affect a broader class across the state. And again, economic activity has a direct tie to commerce. So whether they're bringing in businesses or federal programs like SC Nexus, we would like to be a part of that narrative and help open up doors for other federal programs. Next slide. These are some milestones, 620 bonds totaling 14.5 billion, which will grow this year. We generally do between 2 and 18 deals a year. I think with the interest rate environment going down, we'll see an uptick in those activities. The SSBCI program that's noted, it has a downstream effect to a lot of the VC groups around the state, some of which are on the call. So we administer that program, and funds are taken from Treasury and they're pushed downstream on the venture capital side for folks like Good Growth, Venture South, and others to do the diligence and invest in the state. On the other side, we invest in a loan participation program that is administered through the BDC, Peter Shands Group. Loans are originated, if you will, through local banks, and then they go to the BDC for loan participation funds, which we on the backside fund through U.S. Treasury. Next slide. Oh man, this is a laundry list. I think the point of this is to say we're covering hopefully all counties and a very wide variety of not-for-profits, and again, some for-profits that come through commerce. These have been, looks like goes back to 2021. But again, it's diverse. It's across the state, and they generally tend to be larger amounts. They have some smaller ones below $10 million, but a lot of times due to transactions costs, we see larger deal size just for that very reason. It's expensive a lot of times to close these projects. Next slide. Similar but different. This goes out by county, number of bonds total, and then 2023, I think we'll actually get close to 16.5, maybe 17 billion, with the Navant deal being a very, very large transaction. And again, it's a diverse pool of assets when you look at each county to county, which is a good thing. That's what we want to do. Next slide. And these are just some examples. You can fly through them, but educational facilities, healthcare facilities, not-for-profits, that's our bread and butter. And a lot of folks, when they look at hospital systems and universities, they don't really think about not-for-profits, but bond financing, tax-exempt bond financing is very prevalent in that space. And that's it. I appreciate the time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the time. We get a lot of questions about what JEDA does, and I think you clarified a lot of those questions. That's why we wanted to spotlight you and let everyone know about this resource. So thank you. And we will make sure everyone visits the JEDA website and learns more. And we have one more speaker, and that means that we'll have about 10 minutes left for questions. So again, please, 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 we want to hear from you. This is your time to ask those questions that you may have been asking me the last year or others right to the source. So happy to end strong with Suzanne Dickerson with Fraunhofer USA Alliance.
No pressure. So thank you, Jamie, for having me on. I'm Suzanne Dickerson. I'm the director of the South Carolina Fraunhofer USA Alliance. I sometimes joke that I was the only person in the room at the time that could pronounce it correctly, and that's how I got this job. But in all seriousness, we're trying to do something rather unique here, and it plays off where Jesse just left off, actually. So this is about economic development. I think we would all agree that by any measure, South Carolina has been wildly successful at recruiting companies to come to the state. The Department of Commerce about 5 years ago decided that it was really interested in investing in making sure those companies who do business here can remain globally competitive. And so that was kind of in the backdrop of the state of South Carolina having strong relationships and trusted friendships with the world's largest applied research organization, which is called Fraunhofer. I'll introduce it in just a minute, but we sometimes joke about this being a 20-year overnight success story. Over more than 20 years, the state of South Carolina and Kaiserslautern, Germany, and Fraunhofer network in Germany got to know each other, and it became clear that some of the work that was going on inside the network of Fraunhofer could be beneficial to South Carolina. So this concept was born that we would really try to do two things in a partnership with Fraunhofer. The first is in the short term to help individual South Carolina companies improve their competitive position in some way. And I'll talk about some examples of that. But in the longer term, and I think fundamentally critical to our success going forward, will be the way that we integrate the academic landscape into these applied research programs. So Clemson and University of South Carolina were founding academic partners with us in this initiative. In the meantime, we've also formally added the College of Charleston and worked with a number of technical colleges as well. What we're trying to do here is provide an opportunity through our dollar-for-dollar cash match funding in applied research projects for students to be working inside the industrial base and with faculty, mentors, and advisors and Fraunhofer to help those companies solve their technical challenge or improve their competitive position in some way. So to date, we have, you see 3 logos there. The state of South Carolina's Department of Commerce funds this program. We have about a $2 million annual budget. Fraunhofer USA is always at the table with us, and we manage this program on behalf of the Department of Commerce. So let me tell you a little bit about this program. Jamie, if we can go into the overview. There's some animation here, if you don't mind clicking. I think there's 5 points. So I mentioned this being the world's largest applied research organization. Fraunhofer has a presence in more than 80 countries, 76 of those, so heavily vested in Germany. Because Fraunhofer was started after the Second World War in an effort to help revitalize the post-war economy in Germany, there are more than 30,000 employees, researchers, and scientists within this network, and they do about $3.5 billion in research volume every year. And if you normalized, their patent development, which is really just a byproduct as a nonprofit research organization, they're developing about 10 patents every day. But what is interesting about their model is that while they also partner with universities to take advantage of basic research, they only do applied research. So they are heavily funded by industry. And we liked that model. And so as we were conceptualizing, what would this look like for South Carolina? There really wasn't a template. There is no other state alliance. If you go to the next slide, Jamie, I can show you that although Fraunhofer does have presence in the US, we are the only state in the country with one of these alliances, which means we have dedicated funding, the $2 million I mentioned, dedicated resources like myself, Dr. Marcel Schaefer, who works here, Dr. Klaus Baden, who's here as well. And we are on a day-to-day basis making connections between South Carolina academic institutions, Fraunhofer experts and capabilities with needs that we've discovered on behalf of South Carolina's industrial base. Most of the projects that we have done today over the last 5 years, we've recommended more than 40 projects for funding, have been with the center in Maryland, who are focused on software systems engineering, artificial intelligence. Today, they're also into quantum and other types of digital technology advances. But we can work with any of those dots you saw on the slide before this one or this one. So we quickly realized, as we were only focused on AI and data analytics, there are a lot of other challenges within the industrial base in South Carolina, and we may need to go elsewhere outside of just this one center. So today, about half of the projects we're working on are with German institutions and research centers, and the other half are within the US. Let's go to the next slide, Jamie. We have a process for this that we think we've made pretty straightforward. We developed a scoring criteria with the Department of Commerce. And when we talk about what does it mean to improve your competitive position, I'll give you some examples of things you would find on the scoring criteria application. So if you are increasing efficiencies in your processes, if you are making your supply chain more robust by vertically integrating product, if you are eliminating risk inside your operations, all of those would be examples of improving your competitive position. So the company has to make an argument that we're not just doing, I've heard more than one speaker today say, you know, we really want to be funding things that are pushing the boundaries, not just could be bought on the market. So that is the same for our review board. They want to see things that are really kind of, you know, pushing the edge. But if you are a South Carolina based company, you have office operations, workforce, clients, supplier base here, you will qualify for this program. We try to really hold everyone's hand through this process in terms of writing the application, getting the proposal application refined and tuned in for approval and presentation to our review board. And we meet every 8 weeks. So our review board gets together every 8 weeks. It's a virtual meeting. So a company that would go through this process would come in and make a 20-minute presentation. The university would be included. The Fraunhofer folks that would be involved will be included. And then the board gets 10 minutes to ask them questions, and then we tell them the same day whether they are approved or not. So we've tried to make this very user-friendly process. Then what happens is the university typically gets, I will talk about business models, which I think is relevant for this audience just toward the end. But I think in general terms, what happens is half of the money gets dispersed at the beginning so that the team can get going and off and running towards tackling the problem. And then there's a mid-project review, same kind of format, 20 minutes presentation online to our review board. If the review board agrees that the project is on track and the deliverables can be met as initially outlined and expected, then we release the remaining funding for the team. And then there's a final project presentation, same format. So we're making sure that we're, you know, checking that, you know, what we thought could be technically accomplished is truly technically viable, and making sure that we are good stewards of these state dollars. If we go to the next slide, Jamie. So to date, over these past 5 years, we've done projects in these 5 industry sectors: aerospace, automotive, logistics, life sciences, advanced energy. I kind of summarized the amount of spending. You know, you can see that shortly after COVID, it was less than it is now. We are now, as of last year, have been able to fully utilize all of the funding. I hope that will continue. I'll just make a mention here that within the automotive sector, we've also had a strong focus on battery in the last couple of years, just given the growth of that fast-growing economic sector in South Carolina. $9.1 billion invested into the state in battery operations over the last 3 years. So, you know, as we're thinking about what does industry need and how can we support them where we have a lot of great capabilities, both Clemson and University of South Carolina have helped us host battery symposium where we brought technical experts together, and that's been a big success. So to the next slide, Jamie. These are the areas that you see here. So if you have startups in your environs that are working on, you know, artificial intelligence, data analytics, Industry 4.0, materials sciences, any of those topics you saw earlier, we would love to get to know them. And the reason is because we have 7 different business models that we can deploy. And the one that I think is relevant, there's an animation here, Jamie. You know, most of the projects we've done to date have been these faculty-led R&D where the funding goes to the university and then the university subcontracts to Fraunhofer, but it became evident to us pretty early on that we also want to be able to facilitate opportunities for startups. So if you go click one more. So we developed a business model called development partnership. So in this model, there's not only a swim lane, a technical swim lane for the university and for Fraunhofer, but there's also a technical swim lane for a startup. So if all of those capabilities combined can help an industrial client here better than without the startup, we would love to have the startup involved. And 50% of the funding can come from our state alliance budget. So let's say you have a big fish like an OEM or a tier 1 supplier, and a startup in the state could use an introduction. I love the way Eric Weissman sometimes says, you know, everybody always thinks startups need money. What they actually need are customers. So we are one way to help them find customers. If there's a perfect alignment in terms of complementary capabilities, we would love to be able to bring them in. In this case as well, I think from the state's perspective, we're not just helping one South Carolina company with the funding, but we're helping two, right? The end industrial client as well as the startup. So if you have some in your world that you think might be a good candidate to work with us on some of these projects, we'd love to meet them. You know, there's that variant where they would join us on a project. The other variant that they could benefit from, if they are based in South Carolina, if they have a technical challenge that they are trying to, let's say the next gen product development or something like that, and we could help them with that, then they could be the applicant. So there's more than one way for them to go about working with us in this development partnership model. You know, maybe you all are more familiar with the startup challenges and so forth, but I always think if they can just get a technical solution without having to add FTEs to the payroll, maybe that's beneficial, right? So you could think of us as kind of technical on-demand support in that regard, or if they have a technical challenge that they need to solve and we could help them with that, then, you know, we've benefited them ideally. So that's kind of the, you know, very, very high level. There's obviously a lot more details and information. I'd love to, Jamie, if you just want to conclude, I'd love to just, you know, talk to any of you that have startup companies or academic institutions that you think we should be talking to that can help us in this mission.